Good to go.
You are now live, sir.
Thank you. Call the meeting to order at 5:12. Apologies to those who have been waiting. Lightning strike put us a little behind the curve, but we're back in business. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, led by Councilor Chavez. Salute to the New Mexico flag, Councilwoman Villarreal, and an invocation and remembrances led by Councilor Michael Garcia, and then others who wish to remember people will have an opportunity to speak. So please rise and join me.
I'd like to be thankful for the rains that we've been blessed by Mother Nature. Not only is it hopefully replenishing our soil, our plants, and all of our vegetation, but hopefully it's replenishing us as individuals and encouraging growth. I wish upon us tonight a successful meeting and doing great work on behalf of the residents of San Jose.
Are there folks who'd like to remember someone who we've lost? Councilwoman Villarreal, please.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to honor the life of my cousin, Benny Lovato, who was a quiet and very observant man who cared deeply for his family, his wife, 4 children, numerous grandchildren, and the community. He is now resting with the Lord, and all his siblings, cousins, and relatives who have passed before, he is now celebrating with them. And just wanted to say, Vaya con Dios, Primo Benny. Thank you.
I'd like to call to mind the life of Zev Goober. Zev is a filmmaker, an activist, a community participant, a gentleman in all ways, and a true mensch to everyone around him. He gave a lot to our community, and thinking of Zev's family, his wife Heidi, his extended family, and celebrate his life and keep his memory alive. Zev is a just outstanding part of our community, and he's missed already. So if there are no others, let's just take a minute and think of the names we've just mentioned, those who are sick, who need our prayers, those who have suffered from COVID or other illnesses, and send our wishes out to everyone in the community. Thank you, everybody. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Weber.
Present.
Councilor Cassett. Here. Councilor Chavez. Here. Councilor Lee Garcia.
Here.
Councilor Michael Garcia.
Present.
Councilor Lindell. Here. Councilor Rivera.
Here.
Councilor Merrill.
Here.
Councilwoman Villarreal.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please? There's a motion to approve the agenda. There's a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Say no. Motion carries. We have the consent agenda. I believe, Madam Clerk, several items have been taken off of consent. Can you read those out to us all?
Yes, Mayor. We have item Y and item AB were both removed by Councilor Garcia.
So let's mark those down. Item Y as in yellow.
Correct.
And
AB as in Apple Boy.
thank you very much. So with those taken off the agenda, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended? There's a motion to approve the consent agenda as amended. Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilor Cassett.
Yes.
Councilor Chavez.
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Lindell.
Yes.
Councilor Rivera.
Yes.
Councilor Merrill.
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes,
Consent agenda has been approved.
thank you. Madam Clerk, item 8A, please.
Yes, item 8A is our fiscal year 21 audit update by Vicky Bejarano, our interim assistant finance director.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. The RFP for the FY21 audit was issued on June 29th. Proposals were due July 21st, and they were received. A recommendation has been made, and it's a closed process, so I can't discuss even how many proposed or what the recommendation is. It should be finalized. It's essentially in negotiations, and it should be finalized by August 2nd, and then it can be disclosed. We're hoping that, or anticipating work to begin on August 8th. As far as the RFP for accounting services for fiscal year 22, the RFP was issued on June 3rd. Proposals were due and received June 24th. Responses were distributed to the evaluation committee on July 2nd. The evaluation committee has met, and a recommendation has been made, and negotiations have begun. So our hope is that work begins on both of these contracts on August the 8th. I'd also like to report out on our interactions with the Office of the State Auditor and DFA with the Gantt chart that the OSA wanted us to complete. I reported, I think on the 13th, that it was due on the 15th. We submitted everything to the Office of the State Auditor and to DFA, and we haven't received any word back from the Office of the State Auditor as to whether they want or need more information. We have received a request from them for the status of the RFP for the 21 audit, but nothing with regard to the items that we've submitted so far. DFA so far has indicated that they're pleased. We had a working session with them, and they have indicated that they're pleased with the information and believe that we're ready for the 21 audit. With that, I stand for questions.
Yes, sir. Councilor Lindell?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for being here tonight, Mr. Bejarano. Couple of quick questions. We had a July 15th deadline. How'd we do with that?
Yes, as I stated, we submitted all the information before the end of the day, and we also indicated that the contractor, REDW, was ready and willing to meet with the Office of the State Auditor if they had any questions regarding the information that we submitted, and that we would also make available the head contractor for that.
Great. Congratulations. That's wonderful that we
Thank you.
hit that timeline. So we submitted on the 12th, so that'll be 2 weeks on Friday. We submitted on the 15th, so that'll be 2 weeks on Friday, I think.
That's correct.
And we haven't heard anything from the state auditor. Did we have an expectation of a timeline on that?
No, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, they've not given us any timeline or indication of when they would provide us feedback. And we have heard from them, but only in regard to the timeline for the RFP on the audit work.
Okay. Well, congratulations on getting that, hitting that timeline, and it seems like we're really making some great progress. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Others? Thank you, sir. We'll look forward to more updates. I know you're working on ongoing conversations and communications, and as the RFPs come to fruition, working through the city manager, we'll all find out what the outcomes are.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk, we have a guest.
You're correct, we do have a guest. We actually have two guests, but the next item up for 8B is the state of the municipal court, and Judge Virginia V. Hill is available for this item. Chittum is assisting as well.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. Thank you for the opportunity. I also am required to report the state of municipal court address to you twice a year. But I always consider it an opportunity because we're sort of out there, and, you know, the business that you conduct is somewhat isolated from what we do. So I'm happy to let you know that municipal court is running very well. The wheels have been greased, and we have had to respond to so many requirements during the pandemic and post-pandemic, not only the city requirements, but the emergency management team from the Supreme Court. Also, we are required to comply with anything the state bar asks of us. One of the things that I'm particularly proud of is how we have implemented administrative procedures and documented them for each employee, so that if somebody comes in a new position, they have a job description, they know the scope of their employment, they know what their parameters are, and they know how to work with others within the court, because we do cross-train quite a bit. And a major part of that, a large part of that, is because of my new court administrator, who I brought with me tonight to introduce to you. I'd like Mr. Chad Chittum to say hello to you all.
Mr. Mayor, council members, my name is Chad Chittum. I'm the staff attorney here at the municipal court, and thanks for having us.
So, Mr. Chittum rose up the ranks as being a prosecutor, and very humble person. He won Prosecutor of the Year, and he never wanted any publicity for it. So that's the kind of person you want to embrace in your environment. And that's exactly how I have, and everyone else who works at the municipal court has responded to his leadership there. Because we're required to comply with so much authority, I rely on him highly. And the most recent is something that we actually never thought of. And so you have all the information that I usually give you. I'm trying to sort of give you information that you don't know about. And that is, the state bar is requiring us to do, succession planning, something that I've never been in the work environment with. And so that is on Mr. Chittum's lap. He will provide that to the state bar. The municipal court will be prepared for all succession planning for all positions. And I think in particular they're looking for my position, and that one's very easy. I'm an elected official, and they're looking for succession planning. I'm part of the staff attorney court administrator. So that will not be difficult to do. But I appreciate that opportunity because it starts helping us look ahead. One of the things I want to highlight that is really part of your memo that I don't think I reported the last time I spoke with you all, and that was all of the safety measures that we put in place. We were able to get funding from the New Mexico legislature. We did get, a long time ago, bulletproof glass, and we also were able to get funding for air conditioning, outdated, as I might say, and our roof. Actually, Mr. Chittum just reported to me that we have a couple of leaks based on, and that happens, but the response we get, we're very satisfied with in regards to that. We're also looking to do some landscaping in the future. The building has the original landscaping, and none of that has been improved upon. So you all have approved some funding for us to begin that process, and we hope to make the municipal court much more inviting by the landscaping that we provide. Right now it's weeds, lots of them. And I also want to report that we do have an alarm system that can address any crisis. We've just recently done active shooter training by the Administrative Office of the Courts. We had a 4-hour required training. So our safety measures are really upbeat for us, and I'm really proud of that. And I think, as I say, a large part of what we've done has a lot to do with who you have in place in the workplace and how hard they work towards goals. And I'm very proud of the fact that not only Mr. Chittum, but I have a wonderful staff, a wonderful clerk staff, and we're all working together to make sure that the service we provide is in the best interest of the public and in a fair and just way. So I stand for questions.
Thank you, Your Honor, and welcome, Mr. Chittum. Nice to see you here. Questions for the judge or Mr. Chittum? Councilwoman Merrill-Worth.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess my mic is working. Hi, Judge. Good evening. Thank you for joining us. Just a quick question. You used to give us kind of court stats. Are you still doing that? I'm not sure. Maybe I've missed it.
Court staff,
Stats. Sorry.
they're in
Like
your packet.
Oh, okay. That's where
Yeah.
I need to be looking for. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
They're in there. Any other questions?
Thank you
Your
very
Honor,
much.
and
Good evening.
thank you again for swearing in our 4 lateral officers today.
One of the highlights of my job.
It was a wonderful event out at your court, and you made everybody feel very welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, 8C.
Yes. Item 8C is our quarterly update from the Community Health and Safety Task Force. This is presented by Councilman Villarreal and Councilor Rivera, and I believe they have others here to present as well.
Are the screens working? Because I think
I think things should be working, aren't they? Yeah, Christine's got a big yes.
I do have a big yes. I will just note that Alex is covering for Ashley today, so give us 1 second to get that updated.
All right. Did you all want to set the stage while we're waiting for the technology to kick in? No.
I think some of our members may be on, and
Zoomification?
yeah, it'd be nice to be able
We'll
to.
be able to have some of the Zoom participation as well.
Yes, Valeria is on already, and she's up on the Zoom. We're just waiting for the TVs to come up.
Okay. Hopefully they will not be. There we go. Look at us go. Just like the 21st century.
I'll be right back. I'm going to go change the settings in the booth, but I'll be right back.
Is she the only one on, Christine?
What was that, Counselor? Sorry.
I was just wondering if she was the only one on.
I believe so. Is Jason Espinosa supposed to be on? He's the only other person in the waiting room. Okay.
All right, so thank you. We tried to get this presentation the last meeting, but there was some miscommunication, so but we're happy to be here today. The agenda, we'll just welcome our members. I'll introduce them again by name. I think the work they're doing is important, so I think it's important to be recognized. We'll talk about the second quarter progress report, and then the next steps with community engagement and information in the learning sessions, what's come about that. So I'd like to acknowledge my fellow co-chair, Councilwoman Villarreal, who does a great job day in and day out. You guys all see it. I see it at a different level with this Community Health and Safety Task Force, so I appreciate her tremendously. We have Annie Raskin from District 1, Bruce Finger from District 3, Emily Kaltenbach from District 2, Monica Alt from District 4, Mary Louise Romero Benacourt, who's an at-large member, Marcela Diaz, an at-large member, and then Gino Zamora, also an at-large member. We'll go over our second quarter updates, and you'll hear general task force stuff, policies and practices information, alternative approaches, what we're looking at third quarter priorities, and then our next steps. I'm glad right now to announce that we've gotten a city staff liaison or support. You all know her, Julie Sanchez. She's standing back there. She's already made a great impact to our team, and we're thrilled to have her. And she's great to have with regards to getting things through the city process. I also wanted to mention the community engagement and the UNM Center for Social Policy, the contract that we've been working on. We actually started in February discussing it, and it wasn't until April that we started getting moving on language. And Julie will talk about it a little more, but it's been a long, drawn-out process. So we were hoping that community engagement would have already started, but due to circumstances beyond our control, it hasn't, and we'll let Julie talk about that more. And then just to let everyone know that we do have 2 meetings a month, and when we don't have a meeting, we usually have a subgroup or a working group meeting where we discuss things within our group and where we want to go and what we want to work on. So with that, I'll turn it over next to Valeria, who's I forgot to mention Valeria, who's also a great part of our team and does a great job in reporting and keeping us all on track and keeping our meetings and our minutes and us in line most of the time. So thank you, Valeria. Sorry I left you out there.
No worries. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Ooh, I think I am. Am I echoing or am I okay?
You're perfectly clear. Thank you.
Great to be here with all of you. So I'm going to do our screen share here. Let me know if you see my screen.
Yes. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you. It's probably going to take me a little bit because the power has gone down here in Lamy, so my apologies. All right, so we have our second quarter updates, and as Councilmember Rivera mentioned, we're going to provide an update on the task force general updates, policies and practices, alternative approaches, and community engagement, and then we're going to provide you with an overview of what's coming up in our third quarter and next steps. So as it has been mentioned, welcoming Julie Sanchez as our staff support person here. Second to that is our community engagement and UNM Center for Social Policy. You heard a little bit of an update there. And our meetings that are taking place bi-weekly in addition to working group sessions. Sorry for the repetition there. And I'm going to pass the baton over to Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Valeria, and thank you to my colleagues and the members, most who couldn't make it to our meeting tonight, but they're here with us in spirit and all the work that we've been doing, and to my colleague as a co-chair. I'm going to just give a short update on the policies and practices, or P&P working group findings, and this has been, there's a lot of areas that we had been wanting to pursue and just getting some data and information from staff. So as we indicated from the last update, we requested information from the Community Health and Safety Department, Police and Fire Department chiefs at the end of January, and those topics included internal affairs policies, homeland security grants and equipment, and citizen incident review board, and gender balance policies. And we did receive some information that was helpful in May, and there was still partial information the P&P working group is still seeking from staff. If you go to, let's see, you're in the right place. So on this slide, it specifically talks about the internal affairs policies. We're still seeking information on corrective action procedures and also ways that the police and fire utilize restorative responses to citizen or community complaints. We also For the Homeland Security grants, we feel pretty good about what we discovered. There's still some pending questions that we want to know about the current flow and how the final approval for decommissioned military equipment occurs. So we're still seeking that information. And there's also information that we want to look at that, if you look at the slide, there's operational complaint findings, and we want to dig a little bit deeper into what that data shows for 2021. And again, we want to know how the corrective action procedures happen and how Santa Fe Police Department utilizes their restorative responses. If you go to the next slide, Valeria, and the next one after that. So we have been looking at a citizen incident review board. There actually was one that existed for the city, but nobody seems to know what happened to it or why the board is inactive. And staff is still, we're hoping that they can start looking into that. I think that actually would fall under the city clerk's office to see if there's any minutes from that board. But we have reached out to the National Association of Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. It's a national nonprofit whose mission is to create a community of support for independent civilian oversight entities that seek to make their local law enforcement agencies more transparent, accountable, and responsive to the communities they serve. And they'll be presenting to the task force in the third quarter. And let's see, last is still looking at the hiring practices and pay equity and gender balance policies. And I think we continue to see the need for a competitive salary analysis and pay equity study for PD, for the police department and fire department, and really for all city departments. So we're still seeking data, which is demographic information, which is data and trends of the last 5 years for police and fire, which probably needs to occur through HR. We haven't received that information yet, but we want to know some more demographics to see if we actually have trends, to look at the trends and learn from them. And I think if you go to the next slide, Valeria, we'll be moving on to alternative approaches and community engagement working group findings.
Yes. Thank you, Councilwoman Villarreal. This is an overview of alternative approaches and community engagement working group. We've had a number of information and learning sessions, some of which have been curated by our task force members. One of them, the criminalization to a public health response to drug use, alternatives to policing drug use and possession. And so also looking at some city data regarding drug incidents for the second half of 2020, which we'll go over here in a second. Another one of our task members, Monica Halt, the first presentation was actually curated by Emily Kaltenbach, and the second one on general fines and fees expert panel was curated by Monica Halt, and it included leaders from San Francisco, Chicago, Seattle, Pittsburgh, and St. Paul. So we'll go into that information next. So I'll pass the baton back to you.
Thanks.
Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thanks, Valeria. Just want to highlight on this panel, or this part of our slide, is that the general fines and fees presentation did have national expertise. It was a very robust public meeting, and the presentation was really, the purpose was to learn about local fine and fee reform that's occurring around the country, and also how it can transform families and bolster public safety. We also discussed how each community approached their issue and the challenges they faced, as well as paths forward. Some of the topics that were covered were just a few: driver's license suspension reform, towing and impound lot reform, parking ticket amnesty programs, library fine and elimination, increased access to community service and payment plan access, and creation of publicly funded jail commissary accounts. These were just a few topics that were covered. And then the next slide is essentially folks that participated, so you could take a look at that. It was very enlightening presentation, and there'll be some good recommendations that will come out of that, a couple that have already occurred through the council that we've passed. Go ahead and go to the next slide, Valeria. And I think that's you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Councilwoman Villarreal. So Emily Kaltenbach curated this very valuable presentation on shifting from a criminalization to a public health response to drug use, a local approach and potential recommendations. This is a very robust presentation that we are happy to also share with you. And this first slide sort of gives you a quick snapshot of what's going on at the national level when it comes to drug offenses as leading causes for arrest in the United States, or number of people currently incarcerated in the U.S. due to a drug offense. So we're going from a national level very much to a state level, looking into the county side of things. And this is some really valuable, informative, critical data to understand, right, the severity of drug overuse and the impact that has on individuals and families and communities and so forth. So this is the data that you can see here specifically to the county, Santa Fe County. Something that stands out here is the opioid overdose, high rates across the board pretty much. So again, lots of data, very robust presentation, very comprehensive, and the task force would be more than happy to share that with all of you. These are some of the other data points from the second half of 2021 from the Santa Fe Police Department. 60 drug and narcotics violations between July and December 31st, 2021. 50% drug and or narcotic violation alone. No other new crimes noted there. 70% drug narcotic violations were the primary charge in that second half of 2021, and approximately 1/3 related to a more serious public safety charge. I think it's important also to acknowledge the city of Santa Fe for the progress and the difference that we've made in this particular area. And for example, back in 2014, Santa Fe was the first city in New Mexico to decriminalize small amounts of marijuana. And as a result, we now have legalized cannabis, right? Also important to note is the law enforcement assistance diversion efforts in 2019, which focuses on harm reduction, health-based systems. And in addition, the city of Santa Fe has also banned no-knock warrants in 2021 and implemented a model alternative response unit. So it's really important to acknowledge and celebrate our wins and how we're progressing here. And some of the potential recommendations that emerge from this very, very comprehensive presentation is the decriminalization of drug use or drug possession and related offenses, shifting police responses to more appropriate civilian alternatives, expand harm reductions and other health services, mandate tactical and personnel reforms to prevent drug war policing, and uproot drug war from the civil systems, right? Data collection is incredibly critical here in how we get to make data-driven, data-informed solutions as recommendations, and also key partnerships are very critical here with the county, with the city, with the Human Services Committee, for example, Connect, Department of Health, so on and so forth. Also acknowledging the great work that's been done in existing programming, for example, MIHO and ARU, and looking for ways on how we can continue to leverage those existing programs. And I'll turn to the co-chairs to see if there's anything that I may have missed here. Again, this was a very robust presentation, and there's a lot more information here as well to be shared.
Thank you, Valeria. I think we'll pass it on to Julie for the last slide.
Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, City Councilors. So I get this slide, which is kind of what's next. So I had my first meeting last week, and so I'll have my second one next week. but really doing more deep dive into learning. So the Santa Fe Violence Prevention Research and Development process, which was presented to the Quality of Life Committee by Dr. Andar, the Police Department Workload Assessment and Staff Survey study that was also presented to the Quality of Life Committee. And then, as it was mentioned earlier, the National Association for Civil Oversight of Law Enforcement will also be presenting. This upcoming meeting actually will have the Overdose Prevention Program expert panel, which will be really interesting to hear about what other municipalities are doing around drug-related incidences in their community. We'll have a reimagining traffic learning session, as well as developing and further refining the fines and fees recommendations. And so one of the other big things is, as of today, the contract for UNM has gone to our legal for signature, and so we're anticipating bringing that contract forward to you all for review and approval. And so that's really exciting for us to be able to commence that work with Dr. Sanchez. And sorry, never mind, that contract is not going to be coming here. I apologize for that. And that is all that we have around the contract. There was a lot of negotiation. As Councilwoman Villarreal had said, we started this process, or they actually started this process back in February. And I got involved in April. And so we went through a lot of negotiations back and forth with UNM around language in the contract, and finally came up with some a place where we can all be comfortable. So it's really exciting that we're going to get this process rolling in the third and fourth quarter. And that's all I have.
I think we all stand for questions. If anybody on the council has any questions.
Thank you. I'll look to my colleagues. Hands up, anybody? Councilwoman Cassidy.
Thank you, Mayor. Valerio, you had mentioned that you could share the presentations. Do those need to be emailed to us, or are they on the website somewhere?
We can email them.
Okay, that would be wonderful.
We can email the presentation to all of you, yes.
That'd be wonderful. And I am curious, you may not know the answer to this question, and I don't believe Ms. Kaltenbach is here. Have there been any updates from when they presented the municipal drug strategy back in, what was that, 2020? I think that was pre-COVID,
Right,
actually.
Second half of 2021, I believe. If there are, I'm sure that we can follow up on that as well, if there are any updates. Yeah.
Just to clarify, so were you asking about what had come out of that process and some of their recommendations?
Well, yeah, I remember we had had that a while ago. Was it? Were we already in COVID? Can't recall.
I think it was right before COVID.
Yeah, but I was wondering if there were any updates, either progress that we've made or new suggestions from that presentation, or is it pretty similar to what we had seen in that previous report?
I think we'd have to get an update from Emily because she tracks that pretty closely. There are some things that are recommendations that are very much aligned with our task force work, so we're going to make sure that they connect. But it would be interesting, maybe even a presentation for quality of life to get an update on how that's going.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that'd be good. Thank you.
That was all. Thank you.
Other questions? Councilor Lee Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. Just in your presentation, there's reference to other really large cities. Was there any looking at other cities like a little bit more equal to our population? Something. I know we all deal with the same type of issues, and so what are there going to be the solutions? But are there any comparisons to smaller demographically?
I'll start. So we were focused on fines and fees, so it's not for our all general work that we're only looking at big cities. But fines and fees in particular, there's been reform that's happening in bigger cities just by the nature of, I think, progressive cities that are able to make things work. We did ask about smaller cities, and I think that one of our members would be able to direct us to some groups that are actually, or some policy changes that have happened in cities that are our size. It's just the folks that were available for the fines and fees panel discussion were from larger cities. You want to share anything, Chris?
Thank you.
Councilor Rivera? Okay, back to you, Councilor Garcia.
And so with some of these programs, what has been the results of implementing these, these laws or rules that basically diminish some of the accountability really in society? And so is it helping? Is it not helping? How long have they had it?
Yeah.
Can you summarize any of the findings?
Well, I think it would be, I wish Monica Alt was able to join us tonight, but she wasn't, and she could give you very much specifics on that. A lot of the new reform has been more recent, so I think that they're already seeing families, I mean, just for example, what we just passed recently with the driver's license suspension reform, they are seeing the fact that people are still paying, but they're on payment plans and they have more flexibility to be able to get out of debt. So I think they're actually seeing statistics in some of the areas, but a lot of these reforms are actually occurring, but they're fairly new, so they'll have to track and see how they're going. But obviously, they're not doing it because they just want to change the rules and make it, easy for people. I think what they're seeing is actually making people accountable, but making sure that they also have room to be able to get out of debt, make sure they're providing for their families. I think there's just mechanisms that we need to see that also are providing justice for people that are also trying to do the right thing, and they've made mistakes, but they've still tried to make right, and they're not able to get out of that cycle. So that's, I think, what we're seeing in some of the trends. But if you look at if you watch the panel discussion, because it was recorded, that might give some insight onto what's happening across the country.
Very good, thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Lindell.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if it was in notes, minutes, or where it was from the task force, but I did see a very interesting reference to a reform project in Ithaca, New York, and I did pull that up and take a look at it. It's a very, very interesting report to take a look at. I found it a lot of good stuff in that and really interesting, and it is a comparable size municipality. The specific question I had is the contract with UNM, can that be shared with the councilors? I realize it won't be going to committee, but can it be shared with councilors?
Saying yes, so I assume that's a yes.
I think it,
Mayor Weber, councilors, absolutely, yes.
And could we go ahead and get that emailed to all councilors?
really, you got a thumbs up on that one?
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much.
Other questions? Councilor Rivera.
No, just thank you for everyone's continued support, and we tried to get Ithaca to come and actually do a presentation, but they ran into some issues every time we tried to get them on, so finally we just agreed that we would just stop trying for a little while. There were so many other things to try to look at, so.
Go ahead, Councilor Lindell.
If click-through to that report could be shared with all the councilors, I found it very, very interesting and helpful to read it. So if the task force could do that, that would be terrific. I think most councilors would find things in that useful.
I can volunteer that at the time that our task force on alternative approaches to drug and alcohol use was in the heart of their work, I had the opportunity to have a phone conversation with the mayor of Ithaca. And Councilor Lindell is right on two accounts. Number one, they have a very progressive and forward-looking approach that they've implemented to look at harm reduction as overarching policy. And secondly, I really felt like we were talking to a kindred spirits, that the sensibility of their community, the sensibility of the Santa Fe community around these very difficult issues were quite similar, and that the mayor was somebody that we could really benefit from talking with and partnering with. So that report and their community is quite advanced in their thinking, and I think we're keeping up with them in many ways. So it's worth digging into, particularly insofar as this is a health and safety task force. It speaks very much to the approaches to harm reduction that show real dividends in people's lives. Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you for the update, and thank you for your ongoing effort. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you, Valeria.
Madam
Thank
Clerk.
you all.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I think that takes us to the items that were pulled from the consent agenda.
You are correct, Mayor. The next item up is item 9Y. Sorry. It's consideration of a resolution sponsored by Mayor Weber, Councilor Lindell, Councilor Cassett, and Councilor Romero Worth. It's a resolution establishing the manner of appointing a charter review commission in 2022 and identifying certain topics for the commission's consideration. Aaron McSherry, our city attorney, is also the staff for this item. And it was pulled by Councilor Michael Garcia.
Thank you. Councilor Garcia, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I just want to thank all the councilors and the mayor for bringing this forward, and the proposals that are in front of the committee or commission that will look at.
Pro Tem Lindell, can we get a motion on the table?
Thank you, City Attorney McSherry. Can we have a motion, please?
Move to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Can we have a roll call, please? Oops, hold on.
No, we just needed a motion on the floor so that we could discuss. Sorry, and then Mayor Weber jumped up and Aaron and I both went, you free to discuss? No vote yet.
Right. So we have a motion and a second. Please go ahead, Councilor. I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. But I was just giving my thanks to everybody involved for drafting the resolution to get this very important work started. I do want to say there's a lot of proposals in here that I think we've heard loud and clear from folks in the community about. One of those being with this current charter we're working under, the allowabilities for the mayor to have executive authority as well as legislative authority, and this is looking into, or it's proposing to looking into having the mayor only having a executive role. I also like that it's looking into the councilors being full-time. I think a lot of folks probably don't realize that city councilors are part-time. Most of us work like if we're full-time employees and provide full-time service to the city, but we are technically part-time civil servants, and so I really like looking into that. There is one challenge that I saw that I think with just those two topics right there, the Charter Review Committee or Commission can spend their whole time just reviewing that and making recommendations, and so there is one recommendation that I think that we just haven't had any concerns or don't see it necessarily as a challenge, and so I'm looking at proposing an amendment that would remove one of the items. And so with that being said, I do have some questions first, and then I'll go ahead and move forward with the introduction of the amendment. But when this item was in front of the Quality of Life Committee, when I asked one of the sponsors regarding what was the purpose of looking into whether a city councilor has lost a campaign for mayor remain in office. And to me, it is a bit striking because I don't see this as a challenge. I don't think we've seen it as a challenge in the past. I was trying to just recall the last instance where this happened, most recent, and that takes us to the 2018 election in which Mayor Weber was elected, but former Councilor Ives was sitting city councilor at the time. And one of the justifications given for this was that there would be some type of negative implications, that if somebody had lost their race for office and was still in office, it might be some type of hindrance to an incoming mayor's agenda. And I just don't see that as a challenge, and I didn't see that at the time. I was a private citizen, didn't see that as a challenge, and so I would, I guess, ask my colleagues on the councilor or the mayor, was having former Councilor Ives having lost that election and coming back to his council role, was that a challenge for the council? Did folks see that as problematic? And if there was any problems, I'd like to learn about that. So I'll ask my colleagues if there was something that I didn't see from the public side that might have been exhibited from the council perspective.
Councilor Lindell?
Without going into in fact, without going into any specifics, I would remind Councilor Garcia that there were other elections where people ran for council or ran for mayor and were not elected mayor and then continued to serve on the council. So I think looking specifically at Councilor Ives is to get specific about any councilor is not really appropriate to do that.
Anybody else want to comment on the question? It's I think I don't want to put words in your mouth, Councilor Garcia. I think you're looking for sort of the context for this possible topic for the commission to look into.
Yeah, I'm more so looking at where's the problem, because I think the Charter Review Commission should be looking at how to address problems, and I don't see this as a problem, so to speak. Again, I going back to when Mayor Gonzalez was elected, he ran against former Councilor Boucher. I don't recall major challenges then. Same thing during, right after when Mayor Costa was elected, and the same thing prior with Mayor Delgado. I think this, to me, it is limiting. It limits diversity for potential candidates for a mayoral race. It actually doesn't promote diversity. It tells folks, you can't run unless you're willing to give up your seat, which that is, I've never seen anything like that, at least in New Mexico, or I'd like to learn about any examples outside of our state or any within the state that folks might be able to bring to the table, because that's just not the way our government works, and that's not the way democracy works. If somebody feels like they have the credentials to run for a particular position, we should not prohibit that or limit that. That gets me to the second justification why this was brought forth, which was around equity. And because the council is broken up into two different election cycles, that puts potentially half of the council in a position where they have to make that decision. Do they want to run for run for re-election, or do they want to run for the mayoral position? I think those are decisions that need to be made by that individual. I understand that the cycle of things might be challenging, but if that is the challenge we're trying to look at, then it should be looking at putting us all on one cycle versus limiting an individual. I think what this does, it also doesn't allow for the constituents to potentially retain their elected representative. I've spoken with a good number, well, not, I mean, at least over 10 folks in regards to how they feel about this, whether they're private constituents or formal elected officials that have sat on this governing body. Not a single person is in favor of this. Constituents elect a representative for a time period. They expect that person to be in office for that time period unless there is some extenuating circumstance. They should not lose their representative because their representative feels like they can take on a higher role managing the city. Again, so I want to circle back. Can the sponsors point to me any examples of such government where if an individual is running for office, they lose their seat? I know that we've got, whether you look at the local level, there's nothing within the region that does that. At our state level, we don't do that. At our federal level, we don't do that. So I'd like to learn if there's any examples of any current setup like this that's being proposed.
Councilor Chavez, I think you have your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a question that might help the discussion. So when and the co-sponsors, or the sponsor and the co-sponsor could help maybe answer this. When I look at this, I see it as the items listed would be either made a priority of discussion and recommendation by the commission or not. I also noticed that whether this item is on the list or not on this list, a commissioner or a community member could recommend to the commission to bring it up either way. So I feel like whether it's listed or not, it will be in the hands of the commission to make recommendations on certain items. So it's really the power of the commission, which it should be. Am I clear on that?
You are.
I see nods. So,
Madam City Attorney, do you want to clarify what this, I think it speaks to the first point, which is, what is the nature of this list? Is this prescriptive? Is this a requirement that the commission talk about these items and only these items? If it's on there, is the commission required to discuss it? Or will the commission be establishing its own topics for discussion?
Mayor Weber, Councilor Chavez, I agree with Councilor Chavez's statement. They would, if it's on the list, they do have to at least consider it. If it's not on the list, they might need to consider it anyway because it's brought to their attention, and they need to at least probably acknowledge that and decide whether to talk about it.
because I see on page 4, line 4, it's ideas suggested by the commissioners and members of the community. So, I don't think it's only going to be the list that kind of drives the discussion and recommendations of this commission. And I just wanted to stress that fact because it's written in that. I think that's almost the larger point within this resolution is the fact that commissioners and the community will be guiding the discussion and recommendations.
Other comments? Yeah, let's go down the line. Councilor Maraworth and then Councilor Lee Garcia.
Thank you, Mayor. So prior to being elected to the City Council, I was a member of the Charter Review Commission, and so just speaking from experience, as a member of the commission, I was part of the commission that got direction from that City Council that said, please look at the following things, and anything else that the community or the commission thinks that they should look at. And there were some things that were presented to us, and we looked at them, and some of them rather quickly became apparent why we weren't going to go forward with them. And so just because it's on this list doesn't mean that the recommendation is going to be made that this is what you do. And in addition, the report comes back to us, and we decide which things to take to the voters. So this is really just very, this is the beginning of a process to change how our charter looks. And I don't think, you know, whether you take it in or leave it out, I mean, it's probably worth a conversation, and doesn't mean that they're going to adopt it, and it doesn't mean that we're going to move forward with it if they were to say, this is something that you ought to do. And it's also something we don't know that the voters, or what the voters will do, and they have the ultimate say in whether something that is proposed moves forward. So, and if we take it out tonight, it doesn't mean that the commission can't decide on their own that it's something they want to talk about. So, whether it's in there or it's out of there doesn't preclude the conversation from taking place, and there's a long process ahead, and we don't, I mean, this is the equivalent of our Constitution. Any changes that are made to it there's a lot of steps. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Lee Garcia?
Thank you, Mayor. I guess just taking a look at this, if this were to come up for discussion during the charter review process, it would pretty much affect four city councilors that are on the alternate 2 years or 4 years of the mayor. And so, having it listed here, it does somewhat, to me, says, okay, take a look at this, and then it could bring on further discussion. Taking away the fact that they could bring it up on their own is fine, because the body convening do that. And so, I kind of would be in favor of removing the language, just because, again, I don't know how that would work if they were to dig into this further and enact such a rule. Then I think it would be very difficult or unfair towards 4 of the city councilors that would be on an alternate time frame of mayoral elections. So that's my 2 cents, and I'll stand for anybody else's thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Cassett?
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. This is assuming that they look at how we're doing things and they say that we should still have 1 counselor or 2 counselors per district elected on these types of election cycles. So, that is assuming that we aren't looking at some of those differences. Councilor Lee Garcia, you bring up the point that there are 4 people that it would be impacted, that it would impact for council seats. And for me, actually, that's why I'm interested in this conversation occurring, because I think it is interesting that there are 4 of us who could basically be like, yeah, sure, yeah, why not run for mayor? I don't have anything to lose. I can hang on to my council seat. And 4 who can't make that decision. And so I do think it kind of puts it on a little bit of unequal footing. Also, to Councilor Garcia's point about the constituents, or Michael Garcia, excuse me, multiple Garcias, the constituents being able to elect their elected official. If their councilor that they have elected runs for mayor and wins, then they don't get to elect the person that person appoints. However, if they've already put their name into the hat and said, I'm running, so therefore we know as of January 1st I will no longer be seated on the council, that does open up the doors for them to actually elect in a replacement for the next 2 years. So I think that there are a lot of different ways that you can look at it, and for that reason I'm in favor of leaving it on the list to have this conversation, especially because we are not the ones that will be making this recommendation, well, as Councilor Mary spelled out, they would be making a recommendation. They may take a look at this and say, forget it, we're actually going to throw out this entire system because it's bonkers. Or they may also decide that it's just not something that they'd want to rock the boat, or that there are some pros for maybe looking at it this way. So I think that I would like to prime this question. I think that it is an interesting question. I know that it is one that has come up in conversations just throughout my couple of years on council regarding, who would run for mayor and who wouldn't, and really this piece about that there are different barriers and different risks for individuals who choose. And even if you are running again, there is always this piece of incumbency. And so, yeah, I think I'd be interested in hearing what they think about this and just our general election cycle. It'll be fascinating to hear what they say about numbers of councilors, et cetera. So, I'll yield the floor.
Thank you. Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Mayor. I think what throws me off is in these potential topics, it does say shall. So it says the commission shall make recommendations, and it shall include the following topics. So they shall look at these. Not that they have a choice, they will look at those. And I think out of the list that we have, there's a lot of topics that have needed to be addressed for a long time, including full-time counselors, things that come up, I think, more often for me. All of those are issues that I think rise to the top versus G, which is the one about should they remain in office or not. So that's why I felt like that could be removed, because they still have an option to potentially look at it if they want to. So, and then part of it also is the way it's worded really didn't make sense to me. So if our amendment does not pass, I have another amendment just to clarify the language, because it doesn't read well as it's written right now. So, so I'll wait to see what that vote is. I just think that the list we have right now, these are shall make recommendations, whether obviously we would decide to move forward with that through policy, that's another story, but I think there's just some really glaring issues that we need to figure out in terms of our structure of governance that I have brought up before that I think rise above the shall a city councilor remain or retain their seat after they've lost a campaign for mayor. So that's where I stand with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Councilor Merrill?
So just a couple of thoughts. Just to be clear, again, the Charter Commission won't decide that this is what the charter will look like. They will discuss these issues, study these issues, look at what other cities do, and then they'll say to us, yeah, we looked at this item and we're not going to make a recommendation on this. Or we looked at this item and we don't think there's any reason to go forward with it. Or we looked at this item and we think it would be a good idea if we did X, Y, and Z. Then it comes to us, we'll decide, we may decide to change how they formulated it, and that's actually, in fact, what happened with the last Charter Commission, is that the recommendations that came to this body were tweaks before they went to the voters, and then the voters, again, make the ultimate call. So I think, yeah, I guess I'll just stop there. And as for another amendment, Councilor Villarreal, is it in our packet? Because I only saw this one.
No, it's not in our packet. It was just something that I had discussed in a quality of life meeting, but it was really, I wanted to eliminate it as well. But I do have a suggestion to make it read better. And I can read it into record or write it in an email.
Yeah, it has to be written. So if you want to go forward with that, I don't have anything in writing, so I just wasn't sure, because I seem to be being like, hey, where is that? And it's like, well, it's right there. So just checking.
Other comments? Before you go, Councilor Garcia, can I just weigh in for 1 sec? And I think, first of all, this to me is a list of ideas that came to us as sponsors from all corners of the community, and it is intentionally, as in many instances, broad and even in the category of one of the suggestions, a what-if, item H, to even have term limits for city officials would require first an amendment to the New Mexico Constitution. But I think that idea having come to us as sponsors, we felt, well, it is a what-if question, but let's entertain it, because there are debates going on in the country about even things as interesting as term limits for Supreme Court justices, and it's a what-if question. Some of the other ones are even broader or more unformed, whether the human and civil rights policy statement should be more specific. That's a very broad question, and it could lead to either protracted discussion by the commission or summary judgment that, I'm sorry, we're not going to go there because it's really too broad for the commission to consider in a constructive fashion. And of course, item J leaves the field open to any idea suggested by members of the community or by the commissioners themselves. So my attitude at this point is we've got things that are both very narrow, how many city council districts would be most appropriate, and councilors per district, which I assume everybody on this governing body has an opinion on. These are topics of some very specific and some more what-if kind of conversations, and I feel very open-minded about letting the commission set its work and then bring back to us their best assessment as to how most constructively to consider changes to the charter. I really don't fixate on item G particularly. I think it's there as a comment. I think there may be historical precedents, if not here, then in other communities where there is, unfortunately, bad blood that comes after electoral outcomes. And I don't know whether this would solve that or not, but it doesn't bug me one way or the other to have it on the list of a menu to be considered, any more than the term limits, which is a what-if question, could be considered. So I feel it's kind of it's interesting that it sparks such debate before it even makes it onto the commission's calendar, because it's just kind of a, hey, you all, why don't you take a look at this? If you feel like you have something constructive to say about it, it's on the menu. So I'm pretty sanguine about it personally. Councilor Garcia, you had your hand up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I do want to make it clear that it's not if they feel like they've got constructive feedback. They must give constructive feedback per the resolution.
Well, if I can, it says that they shall make recommendations. The recommendation may be do nothing, ignore, pay no attention to this. It can be that dismissive.
Understandable. So one thing I do want to point out is the limited time that this commission has. We've given them a laundry list of 9 items, with the 10th being whatever you all choose, whatever comes up. And I think just given item A, B, C, and D, you can spend 8 months on that and still not get a thorough review and examination of what's in front of them. And so I think with their limited time, we want to do everything we can to not put additional tasks in front of them to waste their time. I think, again, if this was a challenge that was before us, sure, let's put it on there, but there has been no record of any type of challenge that has been in front of us, in front of this governing body, in front of this government. It was brought up by one of my colleagues in regards to different barriers and risks for those that are might be potentially on a cycle for the mayoral race. Well, that's true for any political position. Whether it's you want to decide to run for mayor, or if you want to decide to stop your serving the House legislative seat and run for governor or run for another seat. The Senate has that difference. Dependent on the state senator's cycle, they have that quote-unquote, they don't have that risk. And so I think, again, there's not a problem here, and we're tasking this commission with wasting their time on something that's not problematic for us. Now, if it becomes problematic in the future, then let's look at it. But we're addressing something that's a non-issue right now, and we're wasting valuable time of these commissioners who, I think we've heard loud and clear from the community that we need to look at the way the executive is set up. We need to look at the way of council representation is set up amongst the city and districts, and maybe minimize or stretch it out. Instead of having 4 districts, having more districts. I think, again, this is a non-issue. So with that, I'm moved to introduce the the amendment that Councilwoman Villarreal and myself have prepared. And I proposed the following amendments to resolution number 2022 on page 3, strike lines 21 through 22, their entirety, and with the editor's note, re-letter the succeeding paragraphs accordingly.
There's a motion to amend this item. Is there a second?
Second.
We've had discussion. Is there any further comment on the motion or on the proposed amendment? In that case, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilor Lee Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell?
No.
Councilor Rivera? Councilor Merworth?
No.
Councilwoman Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Cassett?
No.
Councilor Chavez?
No.
Mayor Weber?
Nope.
Amendment did not pass.
Councilor Villarreal, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just sent it to this proposed amendment for that same item, for line G, to restate it. I sent it to her. It'll say, whether a city councilor who has lost their election for mayor may remain in office to complete the remainder of their city council term.
I'd like to see the amendment written as according to our rules, please.
Mayor Weber, councilors, I just forwarded to Christine. We're going to try to put it on the screen. And the clarifying question I had was, this would be to replace the language in G. Is that correct? So lines 21 and 22 on page 3 is the proposal.
All right, let's see if we can get it up on the screen so everybody can see it.
Lines 21 and 22 on page 3. It would replace the existing language.
Okay. While we're waiting, the existing language says, whether a city councilor who has lost a campaign for mayor may remain in office after the inauguration of a new mayor. And this is substitute language for that 2-line item. This is page number 3 of your. Can you blow that up, please? Thank you. Whether a city councilor, you want to read it to us, Councilwoman?
Sure. It'll replace to say, whether a city councilor who has lost their election for mayor may remain in office to complete the remainder of their city council term.
Let's get a motion on the floor.
And just a technical suggestion, could we propose the remainder of the city councilor's term? Don't have the plural in there.
Councilor's
term.
So I make a motion to replace the existing language on line 21 and 22 on page 3 with this language.
Second.
So there's a motion, there's a second. I know Councilor Cassett has a question, but can I have the chair's, well, the privilege, I just would ask, since you've made the motion, I would really like you to walk us through the difference that this is intended to achieve, because I think that's the nub of the issue. You're doing this because you want it to be clear, so give us a quick insight into how this will.
Exactly what I'm changing it, so that it can be clear, because the way it's written now, it didn't make sense to me.
Okay, Councilor Casson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We actually have, I believe, discussed this very similar language. The reason that we changed it to what we had stated before had to do with the gap of time in between the election and inauguration. So the question became, if you get elected on November 5th, and then do you have to give up your seat on November 6th, or do you wait until the beginning of basically the new council? So if we were to name our councils as they name Congresses, if we were the, I don't know, what year would we be? Who knows? The 173rd council. Would you wait to the beginning of the 174th council, which would have taken place on January 1st? Because we do not name our councils, that's why we went with Inauguration Day, to really specify that somebody would, even if they lost the election on November 6th, they would stay in their office until December 31st, and then as of January 1st would be giving up their seat. So if you have a better way, because I feel like this leaves it a little bit nebulous as to exactly when. Is it the day after election, or when the new administration and council and governing body is coming into office?
Well, I mean, regardless of when that inauguration takes place, they still have years on their remaining in their term, so they would still fulfill that. So that's kind of where I was trying to figure out how to state that, because it didn't state that here about their completion, the remainder of their city councilor's term.
So agreed, except that there's that period between Election Day and the end of the calendar year, which is the end of, so the new council takes effect January 1st under our rules. So that period between Election Day and January 1st, under this amendment, it would be unclear whether that councilor had to give up their seat for that time and the rest of their term. And so what we're trying to do is say, you keep your seat till the end of the year, till the new council comes in, which is Inauguration Day.
So maybe it should state whether a city councilor who has lost the election for mayor may remain in office to complete the remainder of their city council term after the inauguration of a new mayor.
Councilor Garcia, can you help us?
Sure, and I think I like the way the language is set, because it allows for the flexibility for the commission to review both. I think the way it is currently written, it's prescribing. And having it a little more open allows for, if they're going to really look into this matter, then look into it. Don't prescribe after inauguration, let them really look into it and what works best, what they feel works best. There's one glaring point that I think it was brought up by one of my colleagues earlier in regards to who gets to replace the councilor. Is it the incoming mayor? Because that could be huge. I mean, that's not in here, and we're not guiding the commission to look into that. That, to me, that race can have implications on two positions, and I don't think we're addressing that here. That is, I think that's a glaring miss. If we're going to move forward with this G, there needs to be that addition, that the language needs to be included, that the mayor, the incoming mayor, will get to pick their replacement for the councilor who is having to give up their seat because they lost the election. And I think that is huge. The public needs to know that. And again, this is a big, big, big topic. And given the other topics that we have on here, and given this is not an issue I'm surprised that the governing body wants to waste well, those that voted down the amendment want to waste the time of the commission on a non-issue.
Point of order.
Councilor Cassidy?
Please do not indicate that we are wanting to waste people's time. That is, you might see it as a waste of time, obviously, 5 of us do not, so do not indicate that we are wanting to waste time. Thank you.
I think the city attorney wants our attention.
Mayor, Weber, councilors, I just would suggest you focus on the current proposed amendment, because the other one already had a vote, so we can't rediscuss it.
So the language in council, I just, as most of us saw Councilwoman Villarreal's amendment about 5 minutes ago, I think it's interesting, and the current language talks about the inauguration of a new mayor. The proposed language talks about completing the remainder of the city councilor's term. So the perspective shifts from what happens when a new mayor is inaugurated to whether or not the sitting council member completes their term. So it's more than just a shift or a clarification of language. It's actually a reframing of the focus of the conversation. I think, and I'm saying that as a criticism. I think I'm just reading it and trying to figure out what the difference is between the two drafts. Either one is acceptable to me. I just think the question is there a valid concern to be raised about the dynamics of a council if there's been a challenge that leads to the potential for rivals serving in a way that is less than likely to produce positive results. I'm also, I don't think it's the most important item on this list, and it's fascinating that it's become the one lightning rod for this whole conversation, because I would have guessed that there would be many others that would be more of immediate interest to this governing body than this particular item. What its import is has kind of lost on me. Councilor Chavez.
Thank you, Mayor. So I just have a question for Councilwoman Villarreal. Is the missing piece, because as I see it when comparing the two, the fact that it doesn't state for the remainder of the term?
Correct.
So whether a city councilor who has lost the campaign for mayor may remain in office for the remainder of their term after their inauguration of the new mayor. Do I have to type that? I feel like that captures what's there, because that's the only difference in wording I see is that remainder of their term, and we might be able to keep the language in G and just add that brief statement rather than kind of turning it around completely. I don't know if that's a possibility.
I'm not sure how we would effectively do that, although perhaps there could, the city attorney is making a suggestion.
Mayor Weber, Councilor Chavez, you could move to amend the amendment, and we can
Type it in.
type it in.
Okay, let me type it in. So I move to amend the amendment so it reads, let me get back there. Whether a city councilor who has lost a campaign for mayor may remain in office for the remainder of their term after the inauguration of the new mayor. You want me to email that to you? Or do you? So it's what's in the resolution, it's just going to be adding the remainder in office for the remainder of their term.
Kind of clarification.
So are you giving us option A, which is the amendment as it is, and the amendment as amended?
Mayor Weber, do we have a second? Or do we want to look at it written before?
Is there a second to that proposed amendment?
Or should we? Okay.
Councilor Cassidy has seconded.
Okay, we'll get it on the screen, and there's a point of clarification.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask my colleague about, I think the word campaign I didn't like either, because it's really about the election. They lost the election, not the campaign. So it's whether a city councilor who has lost the election for mayor may remain in office after the may remain in office. Woo, it disappeared. Never mind.
She took it down to work on it.
I'll just preface that. That word
Yeah.
campaign doesn't make sense to me.
That's fair.
Yeah, I agree with that. Thank you.
Do you want to comment on this, Councilor Rivera?
I was going to ask the same question, why the word campaign versus election? 'Cause, I guess you could drop out before the election. Does that mean you?
I don't know either, Counselor, but it's an interesting, I think the level of detailed inspection of this on a word-by-word basis is instructive. Madam Clerk, are you able to generate something for us to look at in a minute? Thank you. I think that's fine. We're tiptoeing up to 7 o'clock anyway, so we'll be able to go to our effort to be on time for 7 o'clock. You want a third amendment? We're going to see how many amendments we can attach to this?
Mayor, where we get cut off after 2.
Oh, all right. It's like a very responsible bartender says you're cut off after 2.
Mayor, Member Councilor, it's in Robert's rules. Yep.
We await your typograph. There we go. All right. So
Is this, hold on.
this is the amendment to the amendment as it would read.
Yep, just want to double check. This is the first time we've tried on-the-fly amendments being typed during live meetings and displayed on Zoom, so like, yay.
Okay. Can you unhighlight that so it's a little, thank you. So do you want to read that out loud for us, Councilor Chavez?
Whether a city councilor who has lost their election for mayor may remain in office to complete the remainder of their city council term after the inauguration of a new mayor.
Okay, so that's the amendment proposed to the amendment. Is there discussion? Madam Clerk, could you call the roll on the amendment to the amendment?
Yes, Councilor Lindell.
I'm sorry, 1 second. Councilor Lindell has a point of order.
Okay.
So the original amendment is gone.
No, we don't know that. We haven't voted on this.
No, because we are on an amendment to an amendment.
Okay, Robert, either way, the original amendment is not gone. Either it will remain as the way Councilor Villarreal proposed it, or it will be amended as the way Councilor Chavez amended it, and it will still be on the floor, and it will still require a vote.
So what are we voting on?
The amendment to the amendment.
No.
Point of clarification. Can I remove my amendment if I like this one better?
Mayor Robert, Councilor Villarreal, if you like this one better, vote for it.
Okay. Have we got our landing instructions? All right. Is there further discussion? I didn't mean to cut it off because I thought we had had fairly robust conversation already, but if there's more discussion, let's not preempt that. Councilor Lindell.
So, could we have clarity on exactly what we're voting on and what is sitting behind it? Anything?
We're voting on this language that's on the screen. That's what we're voting on.
So we would be replacing the existing language on page 3, line 21 and 22 with this new proposed language.
That's what we're voting on.
We're voting on whether to amend that amendment proposal that's on the floor to look like this. If this is adopted, then the amendment on the floor is amended, but we still have a proposed amendment on the floor that needs a vote.
So if this amendment passes,
Yes.
then this is the amendment we will vote on to add to the bill. If this amendment fails, then we will go back to the original amendment and vote on whether to attach that one to the bill.
Correct.
Okay, in that case, I vote yes.
I don't think we're calling the roll quite yet.
I already,
We are, yeah.
You were
my
just-
name was called.
Okay.
Okay, we'll start again. Councilor Lindell.
Would you please call the roll?
You had already said that, but yes, I will call the roll again, and Councilor Lindell will vote yes. Perfect. Councilor Rivera.
Yes.
Councilor Romero-Worth.
Yes.
Okay, Councilwoman Villarreal.
Yes.
Councilor Cassett.
Yes.
Councilor Chavez.
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia.
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia.
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
The amendment to the amendment has been approved.
Okay. So, Madam City Attorney, this is now the language that is in the bill.
No.
Mayor. Sorry, Mayor.
Not yet.
This is now the language on the table.
Okay, so we can vote on whether to have this be the bill. Do we have to vote on the other amendment that was proposed?
This
No.
is now on the floor.
It is
as amended. But you can, if there is any further substance to debate, it is appropriate. Or you can go straight to a vote if we're done.
Okay. Is there further discussion of this bill? Of this amendment, before we get to the bill? Other discussion? Councilor Lee Garcia has the floor.
Just a question, and so we're debating whether, again, this goes back to discussion at Charter Review Commission. And just to say, for example, they do discuss it and they create the rule and it gets passed by this governing body. Does state statute or do any other rules supersede this? Whereas we would create a rule and then, well, state statute says that you can't do that. You can't ask a counselor to vacate their position. And so, once again, I don't even know, somewhat I would rather it have been removed because based on maybe that question. So, I don't know if you would know.
Remember, Councilor, did you want me to comment at all on that? Or?
Yes, if you could.
The one additional step will be it would have to go to the voters, right? So after, if this governing body decided you wanted to pose the question to the voters would have to vote on it as well. Certainly part of this commission's review would involve my office, and so I think appropriate review would involve us advising the commission on if any particular recommendation is viable.
Okay, so in that case, if it would be something that would violate rules that would be superseded to the state or other rules that we would follow, then you would advise appropriately.
Mayor Weber, Councilor Garcia, that's correct. And I think the one that we've already looked at to some degree, and this came up in the past evaluation as well, was the term limits, and that one was an example of a limitation that was found to be not constitutionally valid. And when I said viable earlier, I do mean legally viable. Certainly there could be other reasons something would be a good or bad idea, whether or not it's legal. So yes, that's the type of review I would want my office to assist with.
Thank you for that clarification.
And I would just add to that, again, based on my experience with the prior Charter Review Commission, that, you know, it came up that there might be, and if you went in a certain policy direction, there might be an implication for something else. And I think the example was brought up, well, if that counselor can't serve the remainder of their term, how do you fill that? And so then they would have to look at that, and they would look at, you know, what does our charter say now with regard to that? Is it silent, or do we need to add something to provide how that counselor would be replaced if they weren't allowed? So if there's a cascade of other issues created by whatever it is they're recommending, they're going to have to address those. And again, the city attorney's office in the past, and the city attorney is saying she'll be involved in this new one in advising on what happens if there are implications from a particular policy shift or a particular provision shift. So again, I think all of these things can be addressed. I do trust, and I mean, again, I know how this works, and I think that very good people serve on these things, and they are good thinkers, and they will figure this out, and they will spend the time appropriate and discard with things that they don't think are ready or they don't think need to be addressed yet. So I trust them. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion? So we have an amendment to the bill.
We have an amended amendment that we still need to vote on the amended amendment to see if we're going to put the amendment onto the bill.
That's what I'm saying. We have to vote on that now. We're ready for the vote. Please call the roll.
Point of order. So, just to be clear, we are voting on whether to attach the amendment to the bill. We are not voting on the bill yet.
Correct. We're still working on the amended amendment.
We voted to approve the amendment to the amendment. Right now, the vote that I will be taking roll call on is to approve the amendment to be attached to the resolution.
Correct.
Okay. Just,
We're all on the same
Okay.
page, page 3 of this resolution.
yeah. Mayor, would you like me to take the roll call? Okay, perfect. Councilor Michael Garcia? Councilor Lindell? Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth?
Yes?
Councilwoman Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Cassett?
Yes.
Councilor Chavez?
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia? Mayor Weber?
Yes.
Motion has been approved
Thank
to
you.
amend for the amendment.
So we have the bill as amended in front of us.
Yes.
Is there further discussion? Counselor, no? Okay. Further discussion? No further discussion. Please call the roll on the bill as amended.
Okay, Councilor Chavez?
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell?
Yes.
Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Cassett?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody. Took a lot of amending of amendments, but we got there. I want to ask the governing body for a little guidance. It's 6:54. We always try to get to our business so that the public can be heard as close to 7 p.m. as possible. There is one other item that was taken off of consent. I don't have a feel for how long that conversation will run. All right, Councilor Garcia is suggesting that we can manage this next item in an expeditious fashion so that we would still we could amend our agenda to get to the public as close to 7 as possible. So, Madam Clerk, can you read that item that was taken off of consent, and then we'll proceed with that as our next item of business?
Absolutely. The next item is consideration of a resolution sponsored by Councilor Michael Garcia, Councilor Rivera, Mayor Weber, Councilor Romero Worth, and Councilor Chavez, Councilwoman Villarreal, Councilor Cassett, Councilor Lee Garcia, and Councilor Lindell. It's a resolution updating the terms of approval included in resolution number 2020-24 and 2022-9 to change the permitted locations of banners commemorating hometown heroes from the Cerrillos Road corridor to the rail yard, Guadalupe Street, and the greater downtown area. And I believe City Manager Blair is also available for this item. I would also just like to note, because Mayor Weber walked out, Mayor Pro Tem, if we could get a motion on the floor to discuss this item.
Move to approve?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Councilor Garcia, you pulled this item?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Lindell. First, I just want to give a quick thanks to the folks that have been working on this. Don Christie, who's been leading the banner program for a couple of years. Give a quick shout out to the city manager and all the city staff that have been working on this. As folks know, we've been working diligently and tirelessly to come to a solution where we can get the veterans banners up and recognize the veterans in our community. It's come to our attention that the resolution in its current form is a bit limiting. We're looking at a solution where we can get the banners hung up all in one unison, and currently the proposal is proposing to have a rotating basis, and so we're currently working towards a solution. We're not there yet, so I'd like, Mr. Mayor, I don't know if we can get guidance from the city attorney on how we can work towards getting a solution on the challenge we're now in, where the current form of the resolution is limiting in location where we would like to expand the potential locations.
Great. I think I understand the gist of what you're saying, which is we're looking for more options, not fewer options. We want to work toward that. Can we, maybe the city attorney can offer guidance on what kind of a motion would be appropriate now to permit us the time to make adjustments with your help and your office's help, so the language fits the intent. What would you recommend?
Thank you, Mayor Weber, Councilor Garcia. If we could postpone to the next governing body meeting, I think that would allow us that opportunity.
So we could postpone to the next governing body meeting or the soonest opportunity to take it up if something were to happen to.
Mayor Weber, Councilor Garcia, if you're able to take it up, it will be a governing body meeting.
That would be the next one. Thank you. Good point.
So then I withdraw my motion?
Mayor Weber, Councilors, I think it's appropriate to make that motion after the motion's on the floor, actually. So
But we have a motion on the floor.
that's right, to pass the motion. But I believe that.
To pass the resolution, so
Right.
do I need to withdraw it so you can,
Mayor Weber, Councilor Merworth,
yeah, you need
No.
to, okay.
I believe the motion to postpone is a subordinate motion to your main motion.
Okay.
What does that?
Meaning, Mayor, that the primary motion can stand, and the secondary motion will just move the item to later. The motion will still be on the floor when we meet again, but then we can do whatever amendments we need. But we'll be able to have the amendments posted on the agenda and noticed to the public, because right now we don't have them to do that with.
So somebody needs to move to postpone.
Great. Councilor Garcia, would you be inclined to make such a motion?
Sure, I'll move to postpone to the next meeting, or the earliest time if it's before the next meeting.
The next meeting, as soon as that is.
Mayor, but the next governing body meeting will either be the regular one or one that happens before it.
Special one, special meeting.
Okay.
Regardless, it will have to be a governing body meeting in order to vote on it.
So move to postpone to the next governing body meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
We understand the intent. I'm fully supportive of what you're saying, Councilor. I think you're on the mark with what you're trying to do here, so thank you for noticing that. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll?
Councilor Merworth,
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal,
Yes.
Councilor Cassett,
Yes?
Councilor Chavez,
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia,
Yes.
Councilor Wendell, Councilor Rivera,
Yes.
Mayor Weber.
Yes.
Motion to postpone to the next governing body meeting has been approved.
Thank you. And Councilor Garcia, again, thank you for flagging this and taking care of it so that we don't box ourselves in unintentionally. Very appreciative of that. I would entertain a motion to move the petitions from the floor to our next item of business unless there's a better idea.
Mr. Mayor,
Councilwoman
I'd
Farrell.
like to move, jump to item 16, petitions from the floor, and 17, public comment on bills, before we resume our regular meeting schedule, since it is 7 o'clock.
Is there a second? Councilor Cassett.
Can I add to that? As long as we are grouping together all things that would have public comment, it looks like item 18 is also a bill that could potentially have public comment, or that would be open for public hearings. Would you like to group that one in there as well?
Sure.
And I will second.
Okay, so we've got a motion to rearrange our agenda so that we're trying to get more public comment earlier, which would constitute petitions from the floor, followed by public comment on bills. First public comment, no action, followed by item 18, which is final action on legislation as public hearings. And there's a motion to that effect, and there's a second. Is there discussion? Madam Clerk, can you call the roll on that motion, please?
Yes, just for clarification, I have Councilwoman Villarreal with the motion. Councilor Cassett?
Councilor
you were the
Cassett
second?
was the second.
Okay, perfect. Just wanted to confirm.
Yep.
Councilwoman Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Cassett?
Yes.
Councilor Chavez?
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell?
Yes.
Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. So with no further ado, we should move immediately to petitions from the floor. Let me remind folks, there will be other opportunities to comment on bills or on items that are up for a public hearing. So do not confuse petitions from the floor with those two public comment opportunities. This is strictly for things that otherwise would not come to the governing body's attention. If you intend to speak to public comment on bills or on the final action on legislation, please hold until that opportunity is made available. So if there's anyone who is here to use the opportunity of petitions from the floor, or there is someone in the Zoom room, Madam Clerk, we have the opportunity for that to happen now. Each person would please give your name, and you would have 2 minutes to address the governing body. Madam Clerk, it's in your hands to manage the petitions from the floor, please.
That is correct. I just wanted to make sure, I don't know if there's anybody from the public in person that would like to comment. Okay, if you would like to come forward to the podium, we can start that, and I will.
You need to hit the microphone for one thing. At the bottom, there's a little button.
No?
Now you're on.
I-
Now you're on.
Okay.
Also,
If you're here for public comment on one of the bills, wait for that. This is only for
items not on the agenda.
petitions from the floor that deal with items that otherwise would not be on the calendar tonight. So if you have something unrelated to the items yet to come, now is your time.
I'm not sure if I'm in the right time.
Well, we'll help you.
No? Yes? No? Okay.
Go for it.
Mayor and councilors, it is so, I'm
You don't have to be sworn in, just your name.
Linda Wilder Flat.
Go ahead.
So, Mayor and councilors, it is so good to see everyone and to be here in person. I actually represent and am a part of Neighbor to Neighbor. It is an annual event. It is this is our 11th year. And you are up this evening, I believe, to consider the resolution and to hopefully pass that. I know that Councilor Cassett and also Councilor Villarreal are a part of that. I'm not sure who else signed on. I do have something that I would like each of you to have. The Neighbor to Neighbor has been around this is the 11th year. We are the largest fundraiser every fall during the month of September, which is National Hunger Action Month. And this year is special because the Food Depot, as all of us know, have done an amazing job this year in supporting people not only with COVID, not only with the poverty and the normal routine of what happens every year, but the fires. They have been emergency mode and have done an amazing job. All of that takes time, money, and energy. And so I'm coming to you this evening to thank you for having the resolution, to thank you for hopefully passing that. And I'm asking this year that each of you, and anyone in the audience also, who's from a community or may have a business, to please consider participating. On the material that I have here, it has a QR code. That's our new updated tech stuff this year. And that opportunity, you would be able to go directly to our website, which is www.thefooddepot.org/N2N. And at that site, you would be able to register if you are a community or donate individually. And since you are the body of the city, what I'm asking is if the councilors and all of the staff would consider giving a small donation and saying that it is from the city, so that the city has representation in the donations.
Thank you. Your time's up. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Anyone else who wants to speak to something that is not a hearing or a public comment yet to come? Something unrelated. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone from the Zooming into us from not present in the room?
Richard P. has their hand up. Richard, if you can, you should have had an invitation to unmute.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And I'm going to go ahead and put the timer up on our screen. You'll have 2 minutes once you state your name.
I'm actually just wanted to comment on the amendments for small commercial event permits.
No, you're in the right idea, but the wrong time.
Right place, wrong time. We'll be taking comments on that item momentarily, okay?
Thank you. I will wait
patiently. Thank you. Again, if there's a comment you want to make to something that is an upcoming public comment, public hearing, please wait for that. These are items not on the agenda.
All right, Mayor, and then we do have one more, Miss Stephanie Beninato.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're a little muffled, but coming through.
Okay, can you hear me now? Better?
Yeah, that's much better. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, because I really do want to be heard. And I have to say that this whole amendment you were just talking about, the amendment to the amendment, I'm wondering why a city councilor would be able to keep their seat after they ran for mayor. Wouldn't other people be running for that seat? I mean, I could see them keeping it until the inauguration, but after there's a change of term for everybody, then I think that councilor should leave the council and let the new person elected be elected. And if I've misunderstood what you were talking about, because I did come in the middle, I apologize. But it seems like we're cutting constituents out and allowing some other process to occur. I also want to talk a little bit about a horrible experience I had with Officer T. Lopez, who was an incredibly fearful person, but also very bullying and very angering. And he was screaming at me from the moment he pulled me over for supposedly going past him at 40 miles an hour. I was on Cerritos Road in a 40-mile-an-hour place, and I was trying to go around a person who was texting and slowing traffic down, as was the other slow truck in the left lane. He used words that were obscene. He was accusing me of being on something, even though I hadn't even opened my mouth. And I feel that he is a danger to our community, and I really think that people need to know about him. And I did talk to a supervisor who told me he was just being stern with me because police are really stressed out because half the people they deal with want to harm them, but he was going to be disciplined. So I don't really know what that meant, but it certainly didn't make me feel too much better about Lopez and his need for a little bit of psychological counseling as to how to deal with people in the public. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who's in the room or on the Zoom who wishes to take advantage of petitions from the floor?
Mayor, I have no one else in the Zoom room, and it does not appear that anyone else here.
In that case, I appreciate everybody's comment, and I apologize for the confusion about which comment goes where, but the petitions for the floor are not items that are going to be upcoming, so that's where we're headed next. So, Madam Clerk, having reorganized the agenda, we're now going to go to item 17A.
Sorry, Mayor. I thought having a paper agenda might be easier when we're swapping, but I think it might be harder. So item 17A is consideration of a bill. It's sponsored by Councilwoman Villarreal and Councilor Rivera. It's an ordinance amending SFCC 1987, Section 23-5.1 to add definitions for cultural event and small commercial event, and amending SFCC 1987, Section 23-5.2 to allow up to 8 small commercial permits for cultural events on the plaza, including Juneteenth, Indigenous Peoples Day, and 6 additional events selected by lottery. This is the first public comment for this bill, and if there's anybody interested in speaking to this, they can come forward now.
And
then
to be clear, this is not being voted on. This is we're adopting new rules whereby a bill that has been introduced is now given an opportunity for public comment.
Correct.
So we'll be listening rather than voting.
That is correct. I would also like to note for anyone coming up to speak, if you could please state your name, and then we will be putting a timer on. So once we've heard your name, we'll start the 2-minute timer, okay?
Okay, ready?
Are we hearing me?
Very clear. Thank you.
Heights, Hatui, Mudoeka, Batsataibas, Nananiatsa Paivita. I am Karen Buller of the Santa Fe Indigenous Center. I am a resident of Santa Fe. As a Comanche, I welcome you to my continent, and I am honored to address you tonight on Tewa land. All of Santa Fe is Tewa land, and the Plaza is Tewa land. Tonight I want to express the Indigenous Center's support of the ordinance amending cultural events on the Plaza. The Indigenous Center supports Native Americans being able to sell their own artwork and products at events such as the Indigenous Day on the Plaza. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ryan Salazar. Hello, council members. I'm speaking to express my support for Pride Santa Fe as a special and important citywide cultural event. As a board member for the HRA Santa Fe and member of the LGBTQIA+ community, I want to empower the Pride Santa Fe celebration in the LGBTQIA+ community here in my city. This year's Pride celebration was one of the most successful yet. We garnered more visitors this year than in the recent past. I believe this demonstrates the growing acceptance and willingness of the public to come together and celebrate different forms of love and gender identity. I request that the City Council amend SFCC 1987 Section 23-5.2 to include Pride Santa Fe as one of the 8 permits allowed per calendar year to have a commercial event. I urge the Council to review utilization rates that current permit holders have used in previous years as a part of their review process. The ability for booth participants to vend would multiply the popularity for city residents to attend what could be an even more exciting event. Pride Santa Fe should always be one of the major city events that take place on the Plaza because it will continue to promote queer and trans acceptance for many generations moving forward. Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Kevin Bowman. I am the president of the Human Rights Alliance here in Santa Fe, and we put on Pride Santa Fe every year. Before I get too much into this right now, I would like to thank Councilor Villarreal, Councilor Lundell, the mayor, and all of you for your support of the Pride celebration here in Santa Fe. We're in very unusual times right now across the country for marginalized communities. Not only are we seeing marginalization happen with the Black communities, with the indigenous communities, and now with the LGBTQIA+ communities across the country. It is quite important for all of us to work with each other. We are seeing things happening across this country where our communities that are already marginalized are being pitted against one another. We don't want to see those things occur in this city. It is of the utmost importance that Pride Santa Fe remain on the Plaza, that it is recognized as a very important event for the very fabric that is Santa Fe. We are such a spectacular place and a wonderful city, and we want to make sure that we stay that way, and we are here to support all of our community members. We are thrilled that the Indigenous Peoples Day is being included and that Juneteenth is all part of this ordinance. And we want you to know that we will do everything we can to support our city, and we expect that our city does everything that it can to support us. So thank you for your time, and thank you for your patience, because there's going to be quite a few of us speaking.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rashawn Ahmad, and firstly I wanted to thank Councilors Villarreal, Cassett, Mike Garcia, and Lee Garcia for coming and reading the proclamation at Juneteenth. That was so beautiful, and thank you, Mr. Mayor, for making that happen so quickly. It was a beautiful, wonderful celebration. I just wanted to voice my support for this edition included in this bill, and once again express the need for vendors to be a part of cultural events on the Plaza. These folks are important to showing the full range of culture and tradition, and we need to be supporting and spotlighting our local makers. I also wanted to express that having Juneteenth, Indigenous Peoples Day, and Pride be solidified as permanent events, and that Pride be granted a status that can be considered a commercial event, so that these events always have a place on the Plaza as they show the wide and beautiful range of people in our city and nationally. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello there. My name. What? You have to push this?
Oh, you're good. You're fine.
Okay. Hello there. My name is Timothy Beecham, and I'm a 100% service-connected disabled veteran, and served on submarines in the Cold War. I saw your little exhibit back here, which is really cool. But I'm a member of the LGBTQIA+ community. And my husband and I have a son serving overseas in the Air Force. Today is my anniversary, wedding anniversary to the love of my life. But we would have been married Valentine's Day, 2003, if the government would have recognized our right or observed it. But I'm celebrating that anniversary, and we worked really hard to win observance of our rights. And I want that celebrated in Santa Fe, especially for the young LGBTQIA+ kids that live in this community. So I definitely want the Pride event included in this. So I appreciate being able to request that, and thank you.
Thank you very much.
It is my pleasure to speak to you today. I am Julie Johnston and have resided here for 40 years. I am a board member of the Santa Fe Human Rights Alliance. In June, we hosted 10 Pride events, including Pride on Plaza. For 29 years, Pride has brought several thousand people into town in June. Our Plaza event is extremely popular, where LGBTQIA+ individuals feel safe celebrating their diversity. I am intrigued by the role of our city council's the Quality of Life Committee. Our Pride events do support the stated objective. I'll state that objective now. It's to improve well-being, health, and safety of all residents and visitors. It seeks to support equitable access to health and human services, employment, housing, education, and arts and culture, so that residents from every part of the city and every income, age, religion, gender, ethnicity, ancestry, sexual orientation, physical or mental handicap, and veteran or immigration status enjoy a high quality of life in Santa Fe. For Pride on the Plaza, I coordinated 40 volunteers who came from all over the state. One volunteer from Taos said this was her first year coming to the Plaza. Being here for the weekend, she wanted to meet others in a town that felt safe. 2 other volunteers, men who drove from Raton, shared their joy at being at the celebration. They were looking forward to holding hands and dancing together. Pride on the Plaza is an event where participants come to be around others. I want to know how your Quality of Life Committee can work with
you. Great. Thank you very much.
My name is Isabel Slater, and I am the Programming and Outreach Manager from Meow Wolf Santa Fe. I will keep this brief because I don't think I can say anything that hasn't been said more eloquently or in a more touching way by anyone before me, but I wanted to thank you all so much for considering this and say that I and Meow Wolf are in favor of this amendment. As a certified public benefit corporation, we take great pride in serving our communities and strengthening the community that strengthens us. We truly appreciate every single one of these amazing events with our community partners, and we would love to make sure that they can be on the Plaza and have the maximum benefit to the communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening, members, mayor, council members. My name is Theresa Fulcher. My partner is an artist on the Plaza, and I am concerned at this point about the volume, the many days that are being taken from us. We lost July 3rd this year because that was the eve of the July 4th, the pancake show. So we had to be out by noon. Why would we bother to go out when we have to set up and be out by noon? We lost that day. I do feel that these other events coming in where local artists are giving the chance to sell, even show their artwork on the Plaza, it takes away from us. It was stated that you had wanted locals to be able to show, and say, for example, for Indigenous Peoples Day or Pride. But we do know that Pride events, Pride items were being sold. Another issue was that there are 10 by 10 tents backed right up to the curb where us artists set up. We have very limited time to set up and take down, and yet all of those 10 by 10 tents were there. I was under the assumption, as were many of our artists, that they were going to be tabletops, most likely in the grass area. And I don't know what happened that day. It rained. None of us did go out. But had we have, where were we to set up and take down? Was it going to be told to us that morning? We were not advised. Many of us feel that we are forgotten. We are being marginalized little by little, replaceable by what the city thinks may be better by having locals set up, and better by having them show in the grass area. Granted, it's not taking from us as being where we set up on the curbside, but it still affects us. What the city is wanting and going to do is infuriating to many of us. We have withstood the test of time being out there. Some artists have been there for tens of years. We are people. We are locals. And
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Claudia Chavez. I'm an artist in the City of Santa Fe Plaza Vendor Program. I want to thank you all for being here tonight and listening to what we have to say. Thank you, Councilors Villarreal, Lindell, Romero-Worth, and Cassett for getting back to me regarding the proposed ordinance and the emails that I've sent you. Smithsonian Institute, Library of Congress, Albuquerque Museum, Houston Museum, galleries in New York and Santa Fe. These are your plaza artisans. This is where we have shown our work. I ask that you please hear and consider our comments and concerns with this proposed ordinance, as it will have a direct impact on my business and our program. I work very hard to create my art. I feel that the arts and crafts that are to be sold should be juried and handmade by the person in their booth. No imports or buy and sell art. The art sold in our program and under the portal is of the highest quality, and these events should reflect the same. In our discussions with Councilor Villarreal, she stated that the events would not have juried art. She said these events would be small, but what is the definition of small? She said that no signage or tents would be allowed, so they would blend with our program. Loading in and out would not affect us. Currently, during these events, we are not allowed to leave until after everyone else has loaded out, and there have always been tents with large signage. I've been caught in hailstorms because we weren't allowed to tear down because of these events. We've also asked for a guarantee that these events don't start charging us a fee to be there, because this has happened in the past. Our artisan ordinance has many rules and regulations that we must follow, including proof of insurance and that we are compliant with our gross receipt taxes. I feel these events should also have the same guidelines. Where are the rules that will apply to the events? I've been told they are being worked on, but when can we see them? Also, who will make sure that the rules are enforced? Wow, that was fast. Anyway, thank you very much. I'm a native of Santa Fe. I believe in trade and culture, and I'm inclusive. I just hope that this is done.
Thank you. If you'd like to leave your full statement with the city clerk, you can. Okay. Thank you very much. Anyone else on this public comment on this first bill?
Mayor, if we could please move to online comments.
We have Zoom people, of course.
we do.
Yeah.
So the first person that we have is Richard.
Hello, my name is Richard Brea. I'm a native Santa Fe and live in District 4. As a Plaza pushcart vendor, I'm here in support of the amendment to allow 8 small commercial events on the Plaza Park. I think Juneteenth, Pride, Indigenous Peoples Day, and other cultural events by lottery should be allowed to incorporate vendors in order to enhance their cultural events. The Plaza has historically been the lifeblood of commerce, and we should continue to support this historical use. As a Plaza vendor, I support having cultural events on the Plaza with vendors because it brings more business and people to the downtown area, which means more business for myself. I applaud Councilwoman Villarreal for working with various stakeholders to strike a balance so that the livelihoods of those of us downtown will be supported, while also supporting the vibrance and small business spirit of our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mayor. Next up, we have Cindy Hall. Cindy, are you ready? Can you hear us?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Councilors. My name is Cindy Hall. I'm Vice Chair of the Santa Fe Indigenous Center and Associate Director of Manitou Galleries. I'm speaking on behalf of the amended ordinance proposed by Councilor Villarreal. Indigenous Peoples Day in Santa Fe, traditional Oge Poge Awinge land, is vital to the over 10,000 Indigenous residents of Santa Fe County. Santa Fe Pride, Indigenous Peoples Day, and Juneteenth are important validating events for the citizens of Santa Fe. As a business person who's worked downtown for 27 years, I've heard a small number of businesses complain about these events. But as a person who's worked down there and run several businesses, I've never had these events hurt any of the businesses that I've run. In fact, they've only improved visitors' and clients' impressions of Santa Fe, highlighting our inclusivity. The Plaza has historically been a gathering place for people of all backgrounds, and we have a responsibility to ensure that it continues to be. The Plaza does not belong to a select few. It belongs to the over 85,000 residents of Santa Fe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Awesome. The next person we have up is the Santa Fe Indigenous Center. Karen?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Karen Gala. I'm the director of the Santa Fe Indigenous Center. Good evening, everybody, mayor and city council members. We support the idea of having additional vendors during these three special events, Juneteenth, Pride, and especially the Indigenous Peoples Day. What better place to bring our people back than the Santa Fe Plaza? Not only do we support Native artists and selling their artwork, but you know, our organization served a lot of people during the pandemic, and a lot of people experienced job loss, especially artists. You know, they had no venue to sell art. You know, markets were shutting down. You know, there wasn't any place. So we definitely support the artists, and we want to make sure that we are celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day to celebrate our culture, and not only just an art market, but also to bring culture back to the plaza. The Indigenous people, the Indigenous population here, we belong on the plaza, and that's our originally gathering place, and you know, we definitely support this idea. We want to thank Councilor Villarreal for introducing this bill, and to let you know that the Indigenous Center is in total support of Indigenous Peoples Day on the plaza and allowing additional vendors to sell. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next person is Sarah B. Sarah, are you able to unmute?
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello to the councilors and Weber. I first want to thank you, Councilwoman Villarreal, for the time and effort and care that you've put into this amendment and the intention behind it, and also to thank you for your and the other council persons present at Juneteenth. I am not a member of the African American community, and it was really clear to me how significant that was for our city and for every Black person who was present and not present there. I am in support of this amendment and would like to see the plaza as a representation of the people of this community. I think it is really important, and I think the council has a chance to actually change in significant ways representation at the center of our city that is both economic for the vendors who would be there, but also much deeper in terms of cultural support and representation, especially for marginalized communities. Juneteenth, most especially Indigenous Peoples Day, because that is Tewa land, that is the land of the people who are from this community, should absolutely be included. Juneteenth, and I would like to see Santa Fe Pride as a yearly event there. I think this is one of the amendments that has a chance to actually change the face of the city and make impacts in extremely personal and deeply meaning ways for the people of this community. And I would like to see Santa Fe offer the heart of its city to actually represent the people who live here beyond beyond their ability to pay a vending fee, beyond their ability to be represented by certain federal holidays that have been a given forever, July 4th, for example, instead of Indigenous Peoples' Day, that are not representative of action.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Miss Stephanie Benanato?
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. My understanding is that these cultural events already occur on the plaza, that it is the commercial aspect that's being added. I guess it's the commercial aspect that I'm objecting to. I think these cultural events are fine, although sometimes I wonder when locals will just have the plaza back to just hang out without buskers, without people selling things without permits, etc. But it's the commercial aspect, because I don't know that that actually draws more people. If Pride's so successful, it's not going to draw more people to have commercial aspects to it. And I guess I'm really concerned about enforcement. And I know there was one woman from the city who's involved in issuing permits. But now there'll be 18 events on the plaza that she is going to be responsible for. And that's 4.5 months straight on, 9 months if you do it every other weekend. So who's really going to enforce the signage, the tents, the not being out on the street? Because we have lots of rules about the plaza right now that aren't enforced, including no smoking, no amplification during certain time periods, no competition between buskers. Nothing gets enforced. It is cacophony down there. It has become a very unlivable space for locals who just want to be on the plaza, want to sit there for a few minutes, want to, I don't know, find their friend on the plaza. And so I am very concerned about the commerce part and the enforcement. I definitely think Pride should be included as one of the 3 ones that are named, but I wonder about the other groups that would be by lottery and how fair they'll feel about that. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Rick Martinez?
Mayor, Councilors, thank you for your time. I just wanted to mention to you that I did sit on the Downtown Vision Committee, the Plaza Roundtable Committee. At both times, we were just always very concerned on how we present our plaza and how it looks to everybody, and how the fair representation it gets to the city as a whole. I do support the Indigenous Day, the Gay Pride, and I forget the other one anyway. But I do support all 3 of them. But I just worry that if we're still adding more, what that's going to do to the outlook of the other thing. I know, as Ms. Benato said, there's little enforcement and a lot of stuff that goes on, and I just kind of worry that we're losing the integrity of our plaza by adding more events. I think if we want to do something, Girls Inc. has backed out. They haven't been there. Challenge New Mexico hasn't been there for a long time. We can give Gay Pride or Indigenous Day and can't remember the other one, darn it. Anyway, I just want to say that those are open slots that we can do. But let's make sure we keep the plaza what it is. If we're going to start opening these up, we're going to start having these right wingers wanting to have their day too, and we got to be fair for them too. So we just got to worry about how we take care of the plaza. So I support the 3 words you have on. If I can remember the other one, but I can't right now. But anyway, I just don't like the idea of having more and more. So if you could please just keep it to the 3, I think that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, there is no one else on Zoom.
There's no one left on Zoom who wants to speak to this. This is just public comment on the bill. Anyone else in the room who wants to speak to this bill? Very good. Thank you.
All right.
Could you take us to the next item then, which is 17B?
Yes, of course. Item 17B is consideration of a bill. It's sponsored by Councilor Romero-Worth, Mayor Weber, and Councilor Chavez. It's an ordinance repealing Section 10-11 of SFCC 1987, creating a new Section 10-11 to establish an ordinance relating to shopping carts incentivizing retail establishments to ensure that shopping carts remain on their property, imposing a fee for shopping cart return, and establishing an effective date.
So here again, anyone either in the room or on the Zoom platform, this would be a time to speak to this proposed bill as the first public comment. I think there was someone in the Zoom waiting room that you mentioned earlier who probably applies to this bill.
Yes, Mayor, I'm not seeing that individual on Zoom anymore, but also just as a quick reminder, if there is anybody on Zoom that would like to provide public comment on this bill, please raise your hand.
Or who's here tonight in the room. On the Zoom call.
Mayor Weber, it does look like we have one individual, Miguel Gabaldon.
Okay.
Miguel, if you would like to speak, we can set the timer for 2 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor and City Councilor. City Councilors, just surprised nobody's speaking today because there's a lot of this discussion on Nextdoor app, but the concern I have is just continued movement of placing responsibility for inappropriate actions on others. It is unfortunate that we have to deal with so many incidents of crime, which include removing shopping carts from a business property, not to mention other things such as shoplifting and stuff that goes on in the areas of our businesses. And now we're going to tell them that the businesses are responsible for paying these fines. They're taking actions already. Many stores have long rods on their shopping carts so that you can't take them out of the store. That inconveniences the senior citizen population or those who can't carry out goods on their own to their car. They can't take the shopping cart out. Many of the stores around town have the locking wheels when you get to a sensor within the parking lot. So there's actions being taken by the business community. I think they're progressive actions, but the matter of moving the responsibility of theft to somebody else is just not favorable for the shoppers in our city, because eventually we're going to be the ones paying the higher prices. As I mentioned, senior citizens can't take their carts out of a store because of the bar that they use to keep the shopping carts in the store. So I think some energy and effort should be focused on putting the responsibility and accountability on the individuals who are taking the carts from somebody's store. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else in the Zoom waiting room?
No, Mayor, that is it.
Okay. In that case, Madam Clerk, can you go to the next item, which is a public hearing?
Yes, the next item is final action on legislation. This is a public hearing, as you mentioned. It is item 18B. I do want to note that 18A was postponed, just for anybody listening. So we are moving on to 18B. This is consideration of bill number 2022-16 and adoption of an ordinance sponsored by Councilor Rivera. It's an ordinance amending section 21-4.3 SFCC 1987 to change the set-out time for residential refuse collection.
Okay. This is a public hearing, but Councilor Rivera, it's you're sponsoring this. I thought I would give you an opportunity to set the stage if you would like before we go to the public and then entertain a motion and debate among the council members.
Thank you, Mayor. Really, Charlene brought this forward to me, and I wasn't really sure how I felt about it, but wanted it to go through the process and see how others felt about it, and I think she did a great job of addressing it, talking to people, getting the information out. So it is something new, and hopefully they have taken the steps necessary to deal with any issues as this is rolled out. So thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Councilor. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone that would like to address this? Public hearing's closed. Can we have a motion?
Move for approval.
Any further discussion? Have a roll call, please.
Madam Chair, just,
Yep.
were there any folks in the Zoom that had, okay.
No, there were not. But thank you for checking. Councilor Cassett? Yes. Councilor Chavez?
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell?
Yes.
Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Romero Worth?
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal?
Yes.
Perfect. And I'll note that Mayor was absent for this vote. That's okay. I'll give Mayor an opportunity. Mayor, would you like to vote on item 18B for the
I vote,
time?
assuming the motion is to approve, I vote yes.
That is true. Okay, perfect.
Sorry, I had to
Motion
jump
has
out
been
for a
approved.
second. I apologize.
So, motion has been approved for the adoption of that ordinance.
Thank you, Councilor Rivera. Madam Clerk, we're back to our regular order of business.
Yes, Mayor, we are back to our regular order of business, which takes us to matters from the city manager.
Good evening, everybody. Mr. Mayor, councilors. I got a little lost in the agenda, so apologies about that. A few quick updates for you. First, just to let you know that we're in the process of interviewing candidates for our permanent finance director position. We're hopeful to bring a handful of finalists back at the end of this week and early next week, and we'll hopefully be in a position to make an announcement in the week after that. So we're excited about that progress. Want to let you know as well that I mid-email to all city staff that will require everyone to participate in active shooter trainings. And so you'll see that in your inbox either later this week or early next week. We've been making productive progress. Is that repetitive? We've been making great progress with the rail yard about providing security for that community. And know that Sam Burnett in particular has been doing a lot of work to try to make sure that that happens swiftly. So we feel like we're getting closer to getting that done. So we're excited about that. I'm not a public health expert by any means, and I will preface this by saying that there is no immediate concern in Santa Fe. But I want to talk about monkeypox for a second, which is something that we're seeing as a potential another epidemic in the United States and across the world. And we're seeing it right now on the borders. As my understanding is, and again, this is recent as a few weeks ago, there's only been one case in New Mexico that's been reported. But the thing I really just want to say tonight before the ugliness that we've seen in other communities comes here is that monkeypox is not a sexually transmitted disease. It is not a sexually transmitted disease. The Washington Post this last week wrote about it as being more similar to smallpox, and it is something that is transmitted from person to person from close contact, skin touching to skin, skin touching clothing. And so we have been working that I've asked our deputy city manager to reach out both to the governor's offices and to our legislative delegation about getting vaccines in New Mexico and ensuring that we're in a position to really inform the public about what it is and what it isn't, and frankly to make sure that queer communities are not targeted unnecessarily or unfairly about this looming pandemic. I want to let you know that we're making good progress on our Munis upgrade, which is the system that we use for HR and finance and IT purposes. We had a stakeholder meeting last week with our project manager who flew into town, and we're able to make some really good progress about how we're going to be communicating about this upgrade, both to the users in City Hall and across city government, to the public who uses it, vendors and other people who interact with it, and that we're in a position to provide you and the greater public with some real detailed information about the timeline, what's coming, what's happening, what to expect, but a variety of tools to really help everyone feel comfortable about the progress that we're making and that it's being made in a very smart, deliberate, and intentional way. So you'll hear more about that. And then just a fun thing I want to share with you is that, our senior staff, there's about 20-some department directors, the crew to my left here, the mayor and some others, who are meeting about every other week to talk about the major events happening in City Hall or across city government. And we've started now meeting across the city. And so our first in-person meeting we had back was at the convention center about a month ago, and now every other meeting will be in person. So the next meeting, we're going to take all of the senior leadership to the Southside Library next Tuesday for a meeting, and we're going to keep visiting all the various city properties so that we can make sure that we've seen every property, we know what we're talking about, and then we get folks out across city government. So that's it for me tonight. Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. Matters from the city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor Weber, members of the council. I am able to announce, and we're still reviewing this, but we received a memorandum of opinion this afternoon from the Court of Appeals affirming the district court in the Santa Fe reporter case, meaning that the city of Santa Fe has won on the law again, and Marcos Martinez was lead on that. Gabe Smith worked on that case. This is a legal issue that's been challenged by the Santa Fe reporter since before I got to the city, related to matters of opinion regarding personnel matters. So the Court of Appeals found in a memorandum of opinion that they were going to uphold their prior precedent and the Supreme Court's prior precedent on that matter, and found that the city was applying the law correctly. Unfortunately, they found that we should still pay attorney's fees. So we are reviewing that aspect of it, and we'll have a recommendation to the governing body as to whether or not we should take next steps or not. We definitely don't know if a petition for cert will be sought by the Santa Fe reporter because the opinion just came down today. So that's an announcement. I think it's excellent. This was a huge matter of teamwork. The Municipal League filed an amicus brief. The state-level AFSCME organization filed an amicus brief, and the local Santa Fe Police Officers Association filed an amicus brief in support of the city's position. So I send a huge thanks to them. I'll send a more formal thanks tomorrow. But it was a great team effort working together on that legal issue. And with that, I would recommend we go into a executive session to discuss a quarterly update of attorney-client privilege discussion of litigation, including but not limited to the Santa Fe Trust versus the City of Santa Fe, which is in the First Judicial District Court. And this is pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15-1, Part H7.
Councilor Rivera, can you make a motion for us, please?
I move that we enter into an executive session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15-1H, Subpart 7, for discussion of threatened or pending litigation in which the governing body is or may become a participant.
Second.
There's a motion to go into executive session, and there is a second. Is there any discussion? Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Yes, Councilor Chavez?
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Lindell? Yes. Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Merowith?
Yes.
Councilwoman Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Cassett?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. So we'll be in adjournment while we go into executive session. We will be back. Thank you, everybody.
in a shawl. Today I forgot.
We're live. Live and in color. It's Saturday night? No, it's Wednesday night. Thank you for making sure we are live and back in order. I'm going to hit the gavel one time, and I'm going to recognize Councilor Rivera, who has a motion to make.
Thank you, Mayor. Pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Section 10-15-1J, I move that the governing body reconvene in open session and state for the record that the matters discussed in the closed session were limited to those specified in the motion for closure.
There a second?
Second.
Councilor Romero was seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Mayor, the motion carries. So with that, Madam Clerk, I believe the next item is matters from the city clerk.
I believe you're correct, Mayor. If you'll give me one moment just to pull up my item. Sorry, Mayor, I apologize. I'm usually running several things. I did just want to I had a few quick updates. You all should have received an email from me today. It outlined a bit of the communication plan for the day change for trash and recycling. If you did not receive that, please let me know, or if you have any questions. We also included kind of what we should all do collectively if we receive concerns, because we are adding additional staff to ESD during that time to accommodate that. And I did also just want to note that we have for a long time been encouraging residents to put their card out at 7 a.m. The ordinance that was approved just before we went into executive session really formalized that for us, and we are including that in the communication as well for the day change. And then I also just want to mention that once the day change is in effect, we will have a phase 3 of the communication plan that also reminds residents about the holiday day change. So we kicked it off, I think, as I mentioned, July 6th, and we will continue communication, and it will ramp up, actually, moving forward. I also just want to note that for the Santa Fe Reporter Best of Awards, Reliar Park did take first place, Fort Marcy Park did get second place, Rose Park took third place. We had the Santa Fe Plaza won as the best outdoor venue. The Del Ball Trails won as the best outdoor trail system. And then Marty Sanchez did win as the best golf course. So just want to note that and congratulate all of our properties. It was very exciting. We also will be promoting that in our weekly wrap this week. And we do have some advertisements as well around those best of wins. And then I just want to quickly note that the pool party is Saturday. We're doing free pizza in conjunction with a spray down at Bicentennial Pool. So if anyone would like, we're navigating, just full disclosure, the pool capacities. So the pizza, music, Gatorade water, and the spray down will be outside of the pool, and then anyone wishing to go into the pool will be on a first come, first served basis. So, and then lastly, we do have our final movie in the park. I will also mention this again at the August 10th meeting, but it is our first ever teen movie night, which is Mean Girls on August 12th. And that was done at the recommendation and suggestion, working with the Mayor's Youth Advisory Board. As a side note, John is very excited about this movie. And then I do just want to note that we partnered with the MPO for a pop-up bike lane that night, also for that event. So thank you to Maya and, of course, Councilor Chavez for helping us coordinate that first teen movie night as well. I do also just want to note that I was hoping to present the findings from our language accessibility study to the committee. We have yet to complete that study. We're working through some additional communication between the directors and some of the survey responses that we received. So I do hope to be bringing that forward in future meetings, but I did want to note that because I have mentioned that previously and publicly that we would be presenting the findings from the language accessibility study. So that is all I have, I think, for now. Anyways, that's all I have. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda, communications from each member of the governing body, and I will just take the liberty of starting on my left. Councilor Chavez.
Mayor, I don't have anything tonight, but thank you.
Councilor Rivera.
Mr. City Manager, if you can thank the Parks crew on my behalf and constituents' behalf for taking care of Country Club Road today. I always think about doing before and after pictures, and it just amazes me the great work they do in clearing it out and just making it look so much better. So if you can thank them for that, I would appreciate it. And I think that's all I have, man.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Garcia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just want to remind folks, next Tuesday night is National Night Out taking place at the Alinda Park. Never too old for a counselor. But it's a great night to get out, meet your neighbors, and it's to help promote community safety. So with that, yeah, nothing else. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, sir. Councilwoman Villarreal.
Thank you, Mayor. Just wanted to thank the organization New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence for co-organizing the gun buyback in partnership with our police department. It was a big success. They weren't anticipating as many guns as they received. It took a long time to process them. They had 166 guns that were dropped off, and then they dismantled them on site. And then the next day, they used those gun parts for Sunday for the Forging Guns to Gardens demonstration, which was also organized by New Mexicans to Prevent Gun Violence in Santa Fe Presbyterian Church. And I just think overall, the weekend for gun safety awareness was palpable, and that there's ways that at least we can look at ways to heal from gun violence, especially when it's been on the forefront for local and national activities. So it was somewhat of a healing day, healing weekend for that. And so I just wanted to thank the partners for making that happen. And it was great being able to read the proclamation with the mayor to honor Miranda Viscoli and Reverend Harry Eberts. I have to say his last name right, because people always mess up his last name. So they were very, I think, just emotional and also thankful that we recognized their award. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Go down, is Councilor Lee Garcia, you ready for the microphone, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Mayor. Just ditto on Councilor Rivera's comments. I drove down Country Club Road today, and I was like, whoa, it's a big difference. For safety as well, there's those medians get pretty overgrown. So, once again, thanks.
Councilor Casson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I really just want to thank Christine and the fire department for organizing the spray down at Swan Park. I did go. My tiny human decided he was afraid of the water that day. I'm also afraid of the fire trucks that day. But it was a really wonderful time. The kids were really happy. They were all really excited. And Swan Park was just filled to the brim with kids before and afterwards. So that was also really fun to see the activity that the playground gets. So they all did ask if there would be more. I let them know that Alto Park is coming up next weekend, so I know that the community is really excited about that. So I wanted to thank you all for that.
Thank you. Councilor Romero Ward.
I don't have anything tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Welcome home.
Other than wish my son happy birthday. I guess I should do that.
Don't forget that. Councilor Lindell.
I have nothing. Thank you, Mayor.
I want to run through a quick list of things because it's I agree with Councilwoman Villarreal. There's a lot of things to celebrate: the gun buyback, the support from the Nissan dealership and the family that owns that, putting up not only their facility but money in the way of supporting the people who turned in their guns. It was the first time we've had a private company sponsor and make a difference to rewarding people for coming in with those guns, and it was a really happy day, and then the next day was even more of a celebration. So kudos to you for getting that all organized. Kudos to our former colleague, Councilor Abeda, who is now a member of the school board. I'm proud he's going to put to work all the stuff we taught him here on this body. It's good to see that, there is life after the city council. And all kidding aside, I think he'll make a great contribution on the school board, and looking forward to even more collaboration, cooperation. We've got a great relationship to begin with, but I think it'll get even better. Today we swore in 4 new lateral police officers, and good job to our police team for doing outreach. Good work by our HR department, finance department. We are, I think, seeing more people who want to come work for the Santa Fe Police Department. And I think the cooperation that Councilwoman Villarreal noted in the gun buyback is part of the attraction of our Santa Fe Police Department. You get to do things for the community and with the community. And the police were very, very present and supportive at that event. A new development we are working on with the police department and with our team is a new phone number, 988, which is a suicide prevention line. I think we all know these are very challenging times for a lot of people, and we want folks to get help before they take their own lives or help for somebody else they love. So 988 will be a national and local quick dial if you are seeing something that is scary or experiencing something that's scary. It's still a little bit in a shakedown cruise to make sure that the phone get answered and that people get connected with the help they need, but it's a step, I think, very much in the right direction. Spanish Market, everybody ready? Speaking of what we heard about on the Plaza and the importance of using it as a community gathering space, getting ready for the 70th Spanish Market, and that's a big deal and very exciting. I hope everybody will take a turn and participate and enjoy that the festivities there. It continues to be just another part of our community's history and culture and art, all on display for ourselves and for anybody who's interested. I was very happy last week. Councilor Lee Garcia and I got a chance to talked to folks from the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce at an event over on the south side, and to hear the stories of the entrepreneurs who are making their own lives, not just their own jobs, but their own industries, their own businesses in food, in insurance, in financial services. The stories were very inspiring, and they demonstrated the breadth and the creative talent that's on the south side. And Councilor Garcia was there, Liz Camacho was there, offering support. So going forward, I think you'll see even more recognition of the economic energy and viability and vitality of folks that are creating their own businesses and then watching them flourish. So that was very inspiring to be a part of that. I think there's one other important thing I want to call to everybody's attention, and that is Saturday, July 30th, 10 to 12 at the GCCC, a rapid hiring event for our Public Utilities Department. $1,000 sign-on hiring bonus is still available to all folks looking for a good job. People can apply online now, get pre-screened before the event, go directly to the head of the interview line. We'll have our HR staff, our public utilities staff. There'll be computers on site for instant application. So please spread the word. We are hiring. We are gearing up. Bring a resume, a photo ID, a vaccination card, some kind of proof of some kind of educational attainment, which can also be submitted after the interview. But please spread the word that we are hiring. That does it from my chair. Madam Clerk, item 15A.
Yes, item 15A is introduction of legislation. The first item is consideration of a resolution sponsored by Councilor Cassett, Councilwoman Villarreal, Councilor Garcia, and Councilor Chavez. It's a resolution advancing, I do want to note this item was postponed until August 10th. But I will still read it just in case anyone is following along. So this item has been postponed, but it was a resolution advancing complete streets as a proven countermeasure to provide safer and more equitable transportation improvements in the Santa Fe metropolitan planning area while reducing the impacts of climate change. So again, that item will be introduced on August 10th.
Yes, I see that. Item B.
Yes, item B is consideration of a resolution sponsored by Councilor Mayor Weber, Councilor Lindell, Councilor Cassett, Councilwoman Villarreal, Councilor Chavez, and Councilor Michael Garcia. It's a resolution supporting legislation in the United States of America and the state of New Mexico to protect the right to a safe abortion.
If you can also read my name, if you look on PrimeGov, I've been added as well.
Okay, perfect. I will note that Councilor Romero Worth is also a sponsor of this legislation.
Thank you. Item C.
Item C is consideration of a resolution sponsored by Councilor Cassett, Councilwoman Villarreal, and Councilor Lindell. It's a resolution supporting the Neighbor to Neighbor Fund Drive for 2022.
I shouldn't hurry this. People do have an opportunity to speak for a couple minutes if they wish to about the resolution they're introducing. I passed on B, but if anybody wanted to go back and take that up. About C, anyone want to speak to that?
I can speak very briefly. We did have Linda Wilderflat here to talk about the large impact that the Food Depot has on this community, and not just this community, but really the whole northern region. I wish I had the numbers at my fingertips. I know they're in the resolution, but they serve hundreds and thousands of individuals and have really been just such a necessity in our community, especially during the pandemic. And then, of course, they do incredible other work looking at the root causes of hunger, how we can be addressing these from other approaches and not just looking at emergency food, but how we can really solve the systemic issues that lead to hunger in our community. So the Neighbor to Neighbor Fund Drive, they used to do a fund drive, and during COVID, they changed it to a collection of donations. And this really does provide the support for the invaluable work that they do. So this resolution simply states our support and really encourages the community to get involved with this incredible organization and supporting them.
Any other takers? All good? Madam Clerk, item D is the next.
Yes. Item D is consideration of a resolution sponsored by Councilor Rivera. It's a resolution adopting the 2024 through 2028 Infrastructure Capital Improvement Plan, also known as ICIP.
Councilor Rivera, you want to give it a brief overview?
Familiar with the ICIP plan. As it makes its way through the process, we do have opportunity to change things around. Again, the top 5 is important moving forward for legislative issues, and also if there are new areas within your district that need to be included in the plan, this is the time to get those on at least the list, whether they're the last item on the list or 20th. It's important that they get on the list. It'll make its way through the process and eventually governing body on August 10th.
Thank you, sir. So that completes that. If I believe, Madam Clerk, the next item on the agenda is appointments.
The next item on the agenda is item 20. It's appointments, and we do have appointments for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. So we have Collie Spencer as a reappointment with a term expiring in June of 2024. We have Judith Gabrielle with a reappointment with a term expiring in June of 2024. Tony Berlitz with a reappointment with a term expiring in June of 2024. And then we have Paloma Sanchez. She has an appointment with a term expiring in June of 2023. And Erica Bowe with a reappointment term expiring in June of 2024.
Can I get a motion?
Move to approve.
Yep. The motion, there's a second. Councilor Garcia, do you want to speak to these individuals or have a...
Sure, just excited that some of these folks, with some arm nudging, decided to join BPAC again, but we've got some new folks as well. I do want to reach out to my colleagues in District 3 and 4. We do have a vacancy for each of those districts, so if you all know somebody in 3 and 4, we have 1 spot in 3, 1 spot in 4 that's vacant. Would love to bring some new folks on board. So send them my way.
Avid transportation advocates. Yes. Any comments about these folks? Any questions? If not, we have a motion and a second. Could you call the roll?
Is Councilor Lindell? Yes. Councilor Rivera?
Yes.
Councilor Merworth? Councilwoman Villarreal?
Yes.
Councilor Cassett?
Yes.
Councilor Chavez?
Yes.
Councilor Lee Garcia?
Yes.
Councilor Michael Garcia?
Yes.
Mayor Weber?
Yes.
Motion has been approved.
Thank you. Madam Clerk, I believe that completes tonight's agenda.
You are correct.
In that case, we are adjourned. Thanks.